Chapter 919. Who was the Western demon god? That was the ancestor of the Western demon race, an expert from the same era as Jiushun. Although there was a slight difference in their cultivation levels, their statuses were almost the same. Under normal circumstances, Jiushun would not scold the Western demon god like this. But this time, he made an exception. Even the Western demon god was stunned for a moment, unable to react. In her memory, this seemed to be the first time Jiushun had scolded her. Is there a need? A few breaths later, the Western demon god reacted. Her face was cold as she said in a deep voice, "Just because of that legend, you actually scolded me?" "That's not a legend," Jiushun said in a deep voice. "We all saw it." I dare to believe that Jiushun also saw it. "So what if I saw it?" "This is not him," the Western demon god said. "Perhaps it's just a similar flower, but not the same." "Enough!" Jiushun glared at the Western demon god and said coldly, "This is a kind of faith, a kind of belief." "To hell with your belief." The Western demon god was also angry. After saying this, she directly disappeared. Zhou Tianzhong was speechless, but he did not dare to speak. After all, this was a matter between adults. When the time comes, everything in the Nine Heavens dynasty will be presided over by Tiansong. Jiushun said and handed a token that represented the imperial lord's identity to Zhou Tianzhong. He said, "Give this to him until I return." "Yes," Zhou Tianzhong said softly without any objections. Although he was the prince of the Nine Heavens dynasty and yearned to control the Nine Heavens dynasty and wield great power. But he also knew that with his strength, he did not have the qualifications. Furthermore, since ancient times, Zhou Tianzhong had always believed that everything his father had done was right. Otherwise, there would not be the Nine Heavens dynasty today. If not for Jiushun, the Nine Heavens dynasty would have been completely destroyed in that calamity and would no longer exist. There's still an ancestor behind the bronze door. When the time comes, discuss with Tiansong and see if he has a way to release him. Jiushun said, "During the time when I'm not around, you guys need a strong foundation." "I know," Zhou Tianzhong nodded. However, he and Jiushun both knew that it would be very difficult for the ancestor behind the bronze door to be released. This was because when all the powerhouses in the Nine Sky dynasty were sealed, the seal on that person was the heaviest. There were 3,600 seals. This was the sealing power of an entire reincarnation cycle. Even with the passage of time, it was difficult to erase the sealing power on that person's body. If Tiansong is unable to release him, then bring him to Tiger Head Mountain, Jiushun said softly. He raised his head and looked towards the northwest. Perhaps it's time for him to come out. In the end, 9 depths disappeared. Together with 9,000 years, they paid an enormous price to open up the passageway to the godless continent. Once the two of them left, no one knew when they would return. During this period, the person in charge of the Jiutian court was Tiansong, who was also Jiangchun. "Everything is changing." Jiutian sighed heavily. "This time, I hope father's choice is still correct." Time passed slowly. Ever since the old man with a walking stick appeared on the horizon, the top forces of the Ninth Heaven divine world were not peaceful. The upper echelons of many forces were moving around in the dark, inquiring about the news on the horizon. Some people were quietly watching, wanted to see what the horizon was trying to do this time, just like this, until 3 months later. In these 3 months, the Ninth Heaven divine world was unusually calm, without a trace of war. Even those sects and forces who were enemies did not make a move in these 3 months. Everyone was watching, wanting to know what the horizon was planning this time. And in these 3 months, Zhou Tianzhong went to the sky-reaching school several times, wanting to invite Jiangchun back. But every time he went, Jiangchun was in seclusion. This made Zhou Tianzhong speechless. "Why is it so difficult to invite you to be the ruler of the Nine Sky dynasty? How many spirit bodies has Junior Brother shed?" On the back mountain of the sky-reaching school, Luo Shu lazily laid on a pile of withered grass with a straw in his mouth, looking listless as he basked in the sun. Beside him, Hong Yi sat there casually, holding a pot of strong wine in her hand. Her cheeks were slightly red as she shook her head. I don't know. Junior brother has been in seclusion for 3 months. No one has gone in. Senior brother, senior sister. Why don't you ask me? Xiong said weakly. I'm not worse than junior brother. And you're not bad. Luo Shu glanced at Xiong and said, unhappily. You've been cultivating the sky-reaching scripture for so many years, and you still haven't shed 2,000 spirit bodies, and you still have the face to say that. That's right. Hong Yi curled her lips. Xiong, it's not that I want to criticize you, but your cultivation speed is too slow. Xiong heard this, and tears streamed down his face. He felt wronged. That's right, he had been cultivating the sky-reaching scripture for a long time. But how did he survive all these years? Most of the time, he wasn't cultivating, but serving Katsura Matsuda and Old Chai, these two gluttonous and lazy elders. Cleaning the toilets, and even going out to ask for food. All these things were done by him. Here, this is for you. At this moment, Tong Tian came and placed a pill into Xiong's hand. He smiled and said, I know you've had a hard time all these years, so Sect Master specially asked me to find this. What is this? Xiong asked. Cloud Sun Yang Pearl. Tong Tian said, Take this Cloud Sun Yang Pearl, and it can make up for all the time you've wasted all these years. Your cultivation will improve a lot in a short time. This is very precious, right? Xiong was excited. I knew it. Sect Master is still very good to me. This is indeed very precious, Tong Tian said with a strange expression. Cloud Sun Yang Pearl is the product of the essence of the sun dripping onto a cold place in the underworld. It's hard to find even one in tens of thousands of years. This item can be said to be a true fusion of the power of yin and yang, as well as the will of the great Tao. Senior brother Tong Tian, how can I thank you? Xiong was emotional, but also ashamed. He shouldn't have held grudges against Sect Master and his senior brothers and sisters. However, just as Xiong was about to sincerely apologize and repent, he saw Tong Tian pass an item similar to the Cloud Sun Yang Pearl to Luo Shu. This is the true Cloud Sun Yang Pearl. Give it to junior brother. Tong Tian said, and then disappeared. Luo Shu was stunned. He looked at the pearl in his hand that looked like a small sun, then looked at Xiong with a strange expression. After a few breaths, Luo Shu stood up and walked to Xiong's side. He patted Xiong's shoulder and said to himself, Don't mind the name. This bead just has an additional true prefix, just like your yin-yang bead. Are you bullies? Xiong burst into tears. He could even hear the sound of his heart breaking. Chapter 920. Sky-reaching church. Inside the blessed land that Jiangchen moved to, Luo Shu came here and placed the true cloudy sun pearl at the entrance of the blessed land. He said softly, Senior brother asked me to pass this to you. Thank you. Jiangchen's voice came from the blessed land and appeared in front of Luo Shu after a few breaths. When Luo Shu saw Jiangchen, his eyes narrowed and he was shocked. He felt that Jiangchen's body seemed to contain a terrifying power. It was like the wind, rain, and thunder, exuding a destructive aura. However, upon closer inspection, Jiangchen's appearance seemed ordinary. There wasn't even a trace of divine light on his body. Returning to the origin, Luo Shu was surprised and asked, How many spiritual bodies have you shed? 1,999, Jiangchen said honestly. What? Luo Shu exclaimed, and his eyes widened. In 3 months, Jiangchen had shed 1,999 spiritual bodies. If he merged with them, his strength wouldn't be weaker than a superior god. No, with Jiangchen's strength, he might be able to fight with a titled deity. Is it very fast? Jiangchen joked. In fact, Jiangchen knew that his cultivation speed was very fast. However, he still wanted to see Luo Shu's surprised expression. However, Jiangchen was disappointed. Luo Shu curled his lips and said unhappily, You have the horned dragon's vein. It's normal for your cultivation speed to be faster. Horned dragon's vein? Jiangchen raised his eyebrows and said mysteriously, That was before. Guess what dragon's vein I have now? Boom! Before Luo Shu could say anything, a roar came from above. Looking up, a tribulation cloud appeared out of nowhere in the sky above the sky-reaching church. Upon closer inspection, the tribulation cloud was divided into several layers. It was colorful and beautiful. However, when Jiang Chun saw the tribulation clouds, his face fell. Heaven's retribution, heaven's punishment, heaven's wrath, heaven's wrath. 4 in 1. Jiang Chun let out a strange cry, his whole body trembling. Luo Shu was also dumbfounded. He glanced at the colorful KO clouds in the sky, then looked towards Jiang Chun. He asked, "What have you done?" I just upgraded my dragon vein," Jiang Chun said weakly. Jiang Chun had collected a lot of dragon transformation fruits and blood meridian fruits some time ago. In these 3 months, Jiang Chun had refined all of these things. Not only did the tiger bones blossom with 3 more roses, even the dragon vein had evolved into the dragon vein of the winged dragon. When he came out of seclusion this time, he wanted to share this good news with everyone. But he didn't expect that before he could share it, he would be greeted with this 4-in-1. "You, hurry up and leave." Luo Shu grabbed Jiang Chen's shoulder and threw him out of the sky-reaching church, muttering, "Don't let this 4-in-1 tribulation cloud destroy the sky-reaching church. Senior brother, you have to help me." Jiang Chun was like a cannonball, drawing an elegant arc in the sky, then landed heavily at a place thousands of miles away from the sky-reaching church. Junior brother is out of seclusion? Not just that. This time, even if he doesn't die, he'll be seriously injured. At the back of the mountain, Hong Yi and the rest watched the tribulation clouds moving toward Jiang Chun, breaking out in cold sweat for him. The combination of 4 heavens' retribution wasn't something that an ordinary person could withstand. Moreover, it wasn't something that an ordinary person could attract. They were very confused. What did Jiang Chun do to anger the heavens and bring about such a calamity? His dragon vein has evolved. Luo Shu walked over slowly, wiping off the cold sweat on his forehead, and said, "Fortunately, I discovered it in time. Otherwise, the sky-reaching church would be destroyed by the tribulation lightning." "Then, junior brother, will something happen to him?" De Xiong asked worriedly. "The tribulation clouds this time are very scary. With the combination of 4, I'm afraid," Luo Shu said in a low voice. However, before he could finish his sentence, he saw the 4-colored lightning striking from afar. Shocking sounds of thunder resounded in all directions, and the place where Jiang Chun was turned into a dazzling sea of lightning. The terrifying and violent power was rampant, filling every corner, and even the void was shattered. However, Luo Shu and the rest had a strange expression on their faces. Their eyes were shining as they saw Jiang Chun through the tribulation lightning. They saw 3 streaks of chaotic aura floating above Jiang Chun's head, like 3 flowers converging above his head, absorbing most of the tribulation lightning. Beside him, 5 roses spun around like stars, blooming with multicolored light. Behind him, a real dragon was roaring. The pair of wings on its back flapped the void, stirring up waves. The real dragon looked up to the sky and spat out clouds from its mouth, absorbing the power of the tribulation lightning. Roar! Suddenly, a tiger roar was heard from Jiang Chen's chest. Then a tiger appeared, and its body was covered with beautiful roses. The tiger's roar shook the sky, and it was fighting with the dragon for the power of the tribulation lightning. As the person involved in the tribulation, Jiang Chun was dumbfounded. He did nothing and just stood there. In the end, the 4-in-1 tribulation lightning didn't land on his body at all. "Air! I don't think I have to do anything," Jiang Chun muttered. He didn't expect the tribulation to pass so easily. In the distance, Luo Shu and the rest were dumbfounded. They had seen all kinds of tribulation passing methods, but they had never seen one as ridiculous as Jiang Chen's. With the dragon, the tiger, and the chaotic aura, the 4-in-1 tribulation lightning couldn't even get close to Jiang Chen's body. The most terrifying thing was that the dragon and the tiger were absorbing the power of the tribulation lightning. What were they trying to do? Could it be that they wanted to use the power of the tribulation lightning to evolve again? Buzz! All of a sudden, a loud sound echoed from Jiang Chen's soul. Then, the lightning in the sky disappeared, and so did the tribulation cloud. Everything returned to normal, except for Jiang Chen, who was standing in the same place with a dumbfounded look. As for the dragon and the tiger, they roared a few times, as if they were wronged. It was all absorbed by it. At that moment, Jiang Chen was shocked. He looked into his soul and realized that the power of the tribulation cloud and the tribulation lightning had been completely absorbed by the myriad transformations heavenly lamp. No, to be precise, it was absorbed by the lamp bearer of the myriad transformations heavenly lamp. At a closer look, the lamp bearer was no longer an illusion, but an illusion between reality and illusion. The lamp bearer won't turn into a real living being when the time comes, right? A strange thought popped up in Jiang Chen's mind. If that was the case, then what was this living being? Was it his creation? Or rather, soul return? Just as Jiang Chen felt that his idea was ridiculous and childish, the lamp-bearer suddenly moved. He gently swayed the myriad transformations heavenly lamp in his hand. The lamp was brightly lit. An array of fire streaked across Jiang Chen's soul and disappeared into the void. Chapter 9:21. Jiang Chen's heart palpitated. What the hell was going on? Did the ever-changing heavenly lamp give birth to its own consciousness? What's with that flame? Jiang Chen was puzzled. He felt that his Tao soul might have mutated. Even if the Tao soul gave birth to its own consciousness, it would still be under Jiang Chen's control. Just now, Jiang Chen didn't do anything, but the ever-changing heavenly lamp's lamp-bearer shot out a flame, broke through the soul world, and disappeared into the endless void. How could that be? What was the situation with the phrase, return to the heavens? At this moment, Jiang Chen felt that there was a big problem with him, especially when he saw the lamp-bearer. Jiang Chen felt a little strange, as if a living creature was standing in front of him. This lamp-bearer seemed to be out of his control, and even the connection between him and the ever-changing heavenly lamp was much weaker. Did this lamp-bearer appear after the ever-changing heavenly lamp's advancement, or another living creature? Jiang Chen frowned. If it was born after the advancement, then there was no problem. However, if this lamp-bearer was another living creature, then how did he enter Jiang Chen's soul world? What was the relationship between him and the ever-changing heavenly lamp? I hope my worries are unnecessary, Jiang Chen whispered. He stared at the lamp-bearer for a long time, but he didn't see any movement from the lamp-bearer. Only then did he leave the soul world. Then he returned to the sky-reaching sect. Luo Shu and the others came up to congratulate him. Senior brother, senior sister, do you know what will happen after the soul advances? Jiang Chen asked. Of course it will become stronger, De Xiong said without thinking. An extremely powerful Tao soul can give birth to its own consciousness. Then after giving birth to its own consciousness, can the Tao soul still be controlled by its master? Jiang Chen asked. As soon as these words came out, Luo Shui and the others had strange expressions. When they looked at Jiang Chen, it was as if they were looking at an idiot. Aren't you talking nonsense? That's your Tao soul. Even if it has developed its own consciousness, you can still control it easily. The smiling heavenly god snapped. That's right. You are the master, and Dao Han is the assistant. No matter how strong Dao Han is, he will still be under your control, said the red caltrip yarn. Is that really the case? Jiang Chen spoke softly with a calm expression, yet the wisp of worry in the depths of his eyes was impossible to conceal. At this moment, Tantian walked over. His eyes shone brightly. Staring at Jiang Chen, he asked, Is there something wrong with your doctrine, soul? As soon as these words came out, everyone's expression changed. The Tao soul was equivalent to his second soul. If there was a problem with the Tao soul, it would be a huge problem. It could even lead to his death. No, I'm just asking. Jiang Chen shook his head. He didn't want to tell anyone about the lamp bearer. After all, he could still control the myriad change, heavenly lamp, and the lamp bearer was only a part of it. Jiang Chen comforted himself. Perhaps this was why the myriad change heavenly lamp was so extraordinary. Right? Zhou Qiancheng has come to find you a few times. He wants you to go to the Zhou court and take over the position of royal lord. Tong Tian asked, do you want to go? Take over the position of royal lord? You mean if I go to the Zhou court, I will be in charge of it? Jiang Chen asked. Of course. Tong Tian nodded. Yes. Jiang Chen said without hesitation. It's time to prepare for myself. Be careful. The Zhou court's waters are deep. Tong Tian reminded. Don't think that the Zhou court values you. If one day you are no longer of any use to them, the Zhou court will abandon you without hesitation. Jiang Chen obviously understood this. He knew that the Zhou court wouldn't value him for no reason. They wouldn't give him the position of royal lord for the time being. All of this was because of Jiang Chen's other identity, Tian Song. Perhaps it was precisely because of Tian Song that the Zhou court valued Jiang Chen so much, and even trusted Jiang Chen. The world's edge will probably announce it to the world during this period of time. At that time, all the top forces in the world will gather together. At that time, you have to pay attention to your words. Tong Tian reminded, remember, don't anger the world's edge. Is the world's edge really that strong? Jiang Chen asked doubtfully. Back then, when Jiang Chen was Tiancha Divine King, he had also heard of the world's edge. But he knew very little about this faction. And in this life, Jiang Chen could vaguely guess the foundation of the world's edge. But he didn't quite believe it. Everything in the future was uncertain. The universe was not set. There was no ending to speak of. Then, how could this faction of the world's edge be passed down all the time, and not be destroyed since ancient times, and always be prosperous and glorious? Could they predict the future, seek fortune, and avoid calamity? Or could it be that the world's edge had the strength to determine this nine heavens universe? And in Jiang Chen's heart, the world's edge might be very strong, but it was definitely not the strongest. He had a feeling that since the world's edge appeared this time, perhaps it was because the world's edge itself was threatened. There is nothing that is eternal and indestructible, and there is also no life that is eternal and indestructible. Jiang Chen thought to himself, the universe is not set, and the future is uncertain. Who dares to say that they are invincible, and who can be immortal? In the end, Jiang Chen left and directly entered the Nine Heavens Imperial Court through the Sky-Reaching School's transmission array. And speaking of the Sky-Reaching School's transmission array, one had to say that Zhou Tiancheng was poor. The Sky-Reaching School was so poor that they couldn't afford to eat. Previously, when Zhou Tiancheng came to find Jiang Chen, it could be said to be quite troublesome. He had to pass through many transmission arrays and fly a long distance along the way to reach the Sky-Reaching School. Zhou Tiancheng couldn't bear it anymore and sent people to build a transmission array for the Sky-Reaching School. This way, it would be much more convenient for him to find Jiang Chen in the future. Moreover, Jiang Chen was a disciple of the Sky-Reaching School, and now he was the acting Imperial Lord of the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. Then, the Nine Heavens Imperial Court and the Sky-Reaching School were allies. Shouldn't there be a transmission array between allies? You're finally here. At this moment, in the Nine Heavens Imperial Court, Zhou Tiancheng saw Jiang Chen and looked resentful. He handed the Imperial Lord token to Jiang Chen and said, "What have you been doing in seclusion for 3 months? Is it so difficult for you to be the Imperial Lord? The Golden Age is coming. Of course I have to improve my strength." Jiang Chen said snappily. "Otherwise, how can I establish myself in the Golden Age?" All right. Now you have the final say in the Nine Heavens Imperial Court," Zhou Tiancheng said, then pointed at the back of the mountain and said, "You know about the sealed place, right? There's an ancestor of my clan behind the bronze gate who hasn't come out yet." "I sensed it before," Jiang Chen said softly. When Jiang Chen released Jiu Shen back then, he sensed that there was a being even stronger than Jiu Shen behind the bronze gate. However, that being was a little special. It seemed to be dead, but he could still vaguely sense its aura. "Imperial Father wants you to release him," Zhou Tiancheng said directly. "Imperial Father isn't here, and the Nine Heavens Imperial Court isn't very strong." Chapter 9:22. The Nine Heavens divine world was very peaceful during this period of time. But in fact, a storm was brewing in the dark. Under the undercurrent, everyone wanted to protect themselves, because, until now, no one could guess what the world's edge meant. However, many people were guessing that the world's edge was about to come out this time. Perhaps the world's edge was going to come out in this prosperous era and truly unify the Nine Heavens divine world. At that time, would those who followed prosper and those who opposed die? Or would there be another change? All of this was unknown. Therefore, all the major forces were moving in the dark and were basically forming an alliance. At the same time, some old ancestors who were sleeping in the top forces also woke up during this period of time. This was to use their last trump card to protect their own forces. And for the Nine Heavens dynasty, at this critical moment, Joseon had to leave. The strongest person in the dynasty now was only an ancient divine king. Relying on an ancient divine king alone was not enough to protect themselves. Although the Western demon race stood on the side of the Nine Heavens dynasty, if their own strength was not enough and their foundation was not deep enough, it would be difficult for them to stand in these muddy waters. The Nine Heavens dynasty needs a supreme to protect the dynasty's legacy. Zhou Tianzhong said in a deep voice, "You should be able to see the current situation clearly. It's very unfavorable for the Nine Heavens dynasty." Yeah, that old bastard Joseon left at the critical moment. Jiang Chen muttered, Don't be rude to father." Zhou Tianzhong wiped the cold sweat on his forehead and said, "Although you're now the acting emperor of the Nine Heavens dynasty, but you should be more careful." "I'm telling the truth," Jiang Chen joked. "If that irresponsible father of yours was here, wouldn't the Nine Heavens dynasty's foundation be enough? Don't think I can't see that Joseon's strength has surpassed the Divine King, right?" Zhou Tianzhong nodded and said, "He has long surpassed it, but there's still some distance between him and the Divine King. Isn't that enough? An expert who has surpassed the Divine King is in charge of the Nine Heavens dynasty. What else can happen? But he just had to leave at this time," Jiang Chen said in a bad mood. Jiang Chen waved his hand and said, "Let's go and bring out the other old ancestor of the dynasty." Then, the two of them stood up and walked in front of the bronze door. Speaking of which, the power that sealed the Nine Heavens imperial court back then, just how strong is it? Jiang Chen asked. "That power is no longer in the Nine Heavens divine realm." "I don't think so," Zhou Tianzhong said softly. "If they are, do you think the Nine Heavens imperial court can still appear?" "That's true," Jiang Chen nodded. After that, Jiang Chen looked at the bronze door. His hands kept forming seals, and the runes were like sharp blades that slashed at the bronze door. Previously, there was a small gap on the bronze gate, but now, with Jiang Chen's runes, the bronze gate slowly opened. Half an hour later, when the bronze door was completely opened, Jiang Chen's expression changed drastically. His hair stood on end, and even his forehead was covered in cold sweat. "Is this hell?" Jiang Chen was shocked. His face was pale as he looked at the world behind the bronze door. His hair stood on end. Looking around, behind the bronze door was a blood-red plain. Rivers of blood crisscrossed, and the surface of the river burned with blood-like flames. There were also countless white bones floating. A blood moon hung high in the sky, and the enchanting moonlight illuminated every inch of this small world. There were broken limbs and broken bones everywhere, and there were even rotten pieces of meat emitting a foul smell. In this small world, the red color of blood and white bones were the main colors. This was the final battle between the Nine Heavens Imperial Court and that power. Many people died, Zhou Tianzhong explained. The blood of an emperor spilled, corroding everything and cutting off the rules and order. There were Emperor God-level powerhouses who died here. Jiang Chen was shocked. How intense was that battle? Otherwise, why do you think this place is like this? Zhou Tianzhong said unhappily. However, Zhou Tianzhong did not experience that battle, but he knew how terrifying that battle was. In the ancient records of the Nine Heavens Imperial Court, there were records that in that battle, both sides sent out top powerhouses, and there were even supreme figures. In the end, after that battle, 90% of the top powerhouses of the Nine Heavens Imperial Court died, and 70 to 80% of the top powerhouses of the other power also died. As for the remaining people of the Nine Heavens Imperial Court, they were sealed here. With the passage of time, only Jiushun and another ancestor were still alive among the people who had been sealed back then. The others had all been killed by the seal. "Where's the other old ancestor of your family?" Jiang Chen asked. This small world was neither big nor small, but with Jiang Chen's divine will, he could see through every corner of this small world. He was searching for the aura of the other old ancestor of the Nine Heavens Imperial Court, but there were no clues. "There!" Zhou Tianzhong pointed at the blood moon and sighed. "That's one of the strongest old ancestors of my clan, and the only one who's alive. It's just a pity. There are too many seals on his body, and they're too heavy. I'm afraid you won't be able to undo them." Jiang Chen looked up when he heard this. After carefully studying the blood moon, he frowned slightly and said, "The seal of the Blood Demon Clan? Your enemy back then was the Blood Demon Clan?" Zhou Tianzhong nodded. "The power that fought with the Nine Heavens Imperial Court back then was the Blood Demon Clan. This was a race with an ancient heritage. It was not a human race, nor was it a demon race, nor was it a demon race. They formed their own clan and claimed to be a clan that was favored by the heavens. And this clan, from the time they appeared, was one of the top clans. The Blood Demon Clan's combat strength was extraordinary, especially their secret techniques, which could be said to be mysterious and unpredictable. Jiang Chun had once seen descriptions of the Blood Demon Clan in ancient records. They were called an invincible clan. Back then, if we didn't happen to encounter the Blood Demon Clan, our Nine Heavens Imperial Court wouldn't have declined, and we wouldn't have been sealed," Zhou Tianzhong said solemnly. "How strong is the Blood Demon Clan?" Jiang Chen asked. "I don't know the details. I didn't participate in that battle, but I heard my father mention that the Blood Demon Clan is indeed a clan that is favored by the heavens. Every clan member is a god from birth." Zhou Tianzhong said. "What? Born as a god?" Jiang Chen was shocked. Other people might not be able to become a god even after cultivating for thousands of years. On the other hand, the Blood Demon race's newborn baby was already a god. This was indeed favored by the heavens. Their spawn points were much higher than the average creatures by a large margin. Such a powerful clan. How did they disappear? Where did they go? Jiang Chen was puzzled and asked, "Are you sure that the Blood Demon Clan is no longer in the Nine Heavens Divine Realm?" "Of course I'm sure," Zhou Tianzhong said. "I heard the last place the Blood Demon Clan went to is Song State." Chapter 9:23. Every cultivator's path was different, and there would be differences in strength. Similarly, there would be differences in blood chi and lifespan, and the higher the cultivation level, the greater the difference. As a divine king, some people could live for several eras and ensure that their blood chi would not dry up, always in peak condition. But some divine kings, after living for tens of thousands of years, their blood chi would dry up, and they could only stay quiet and sleep to delay their decline. Just like the ancient divine king from Lingxiao Pavilion who had died, he did not come out before because he was hibernating to ensure that his blood chi would not dry up so quickly. Now, the divine king from Jotian dynasty was the same. However, he was much stronger than the one from Lingxiao Pavilion. He had already lived for several eras. Since the founding of Jotian dynasty, he had been alive until now. After several eras passed, even the most powerful divine king would also decline. No matter if it really comes to that, I will fight for Jotian dynasty one last time. In the cave, the ancient divine king whispered, "Wang." The moment he finished speaking, a beam of light shot up from the cave abode. The light was dazzling and multicolored. It broke through the clouds and disappeared into the endless void above. This was the awakening of the divine king, absorbing the purest energy between heaven and earth, allowing himself to recover to his peak for a short period of time. He was preparing for it. After this, even if he didn't make a move, he wouldn't be able to live for long. "Welcome back, old ancestor." Zhou Tianzhong lowered his head and kowtowed, knowing that this divine king was ready to die. At the same time, in the various top sects of Jutian divine world, beams of light shot up into the clouds and entered the endless void. Obviously, there were many divine kings in hibernation in Jutian divine world. They all chose to awaken at this time, to rise to their peak, to protect their own forces with their lives. On this day, many people in Jutian divine world saw this scene. More than 10 beams of light illuminated the entire Jutian divine world. That was the awakening of more than 10 ancient divine kings. The great era is coming. Someone whispered, the ancient people are about to die, and the new generation will rise. But it's hard to say whether this era will be the world of the previous group of supreme masters or the new generation of geniuses. At this moment, in an ancient temple in the Tsang region, a Buddha statue that had been silent for countless eras suddenly shook. The dust on its body fell, and even the mud fell off. After a dozen breaths of time, the Buddha statue transformed into a muscular man. The world? Buddha? The man frowned. His eyes seemed to be in a trance, as if he had just woken up. A few breaths later, he walked out of the temple and saw the light beams in the sky. Soon after, he came to his senses. He formed a seal with his hands and performed a divination in front of him. After half an incense stick of time, he came to a realization and said, so many years have passed? Is it already the 10th golden age? Welcome, Buddha King. At this moment, an old man appeared in front of the temple. It was the old man with a cane who had gone to High Heaven Pavilion before. He smiled and walked up to the Buddha King. He cupped his hands and asked, how are the Buddhas of the world? What's so good about it? This is the 10th golden age. Everything will come to an end in this golden age. The Buddhas of the world whispered. They formed a Buddhist seal and asked, what do you think will happen to my world's edge in this era? Be destroyed or be reborn? The old man's expression changed. He said in a deep voice, Master is currently awakening. However, it will take some time. During this period of time, we will have to manage the world's edge. Master is also about to awaken? It would seem that this is truly a great calamity for my world's edge, the Buddhas of the world sighed. Perhaps it's a great calamity. Or perhaps it's a great opportunity, the old man said. On the other side in the Dongfang family's main hall, due to the appearance of the world's edge, the Dongfang family had not been peaceful in this period of time. They would frequently gather the upper echelons of the family to discuss countermeasures. Right at this moment, a purple-haired man suddenly appeared in the Dongfang family's main hall. He did not say anything. He merely took out a purple title plate. There was a purple cloud engraved on it. Dongfang Imperial Clan, our clan's primogenitor's bloodline has appeared. The people from the Dongfang family were extremely excited. They had waited for this day for a very long time. Await my orders, the man said softly. Then he disappeared. Understood? Understood. The upper echelons of the Dongfang family bowed. Their eyes were flickering with excitement and traces of tyranny. Quickly look. What is that? An island? It came from the outer world. Illusion? Or is it real? 3 days later, in the sky of the 9 heavens divine realm, a blurry figure suddenly appeared. It was as if it came from the outer world. It was like an island that was slowly approaching the 9 heavens divine realm. A god king appeared. He stared at the sky. Then his expression darkened. The south wall is about to be destroyed. That's a creature from the great 1,000 realms. This news could not be concealed. Right now, many god kings had appeared. They were able to see what it was with a single glance. That was not only an island, it was also from the great 1,000 realms outside the south wall. There were many creatures standing on that island. Right now, they had already arrived outside the south wall. They seemed to be waiting for something. It was as if they had foreseen that the south wall would collapse. The internal strife has yet to be settled, and the external strife is about to begin. Is this truly a flourishing age? Why does it feel like a chaotic age? A chaotic age is bound to happen in a flourishing age. The age of blood is about to begin. In a short span of more than 10 days, there were more and more shadows in the sky. There were sailboats that were as large as mountains, and there were also compass-like objects. There were even individual creatures that stood alone outside the southern wall, and the creatures of the nine heavens divine realm. Until now, not many people knew where the south wall was. In fact, they didn't even know how to open the south wall. However, the creatures of the nine heavens divine realm had the same goal at this moment, and that was to not open the south wall. Once it was opened, the nine heavens divine realm would definitely become a place of war. The ancestors haven't returned yet, and the south wall is about to be opened. How can the nine heavens divine realm establish itself in the great thousand realms? Without the protection of the ancestors, the nine heavens divine realm is destined to be destroyed. In some ancient inheritances, everyone was terrified and even felt despair. According to the records in the ancient books, they knew how powerful the creatures in the great thousand realms outside the south wall were. If the group of ancestors who had left back then could not return, then, in the nine heavens divine realm, there were not many people who could stop the creatures of the great thousand realms. In fact, it would not be more than one hand. Chapter 9:24. At this point, some ancient secrets had been uncovered. All the major sects had dug out ancient books and found some clues from them. Some people were shocked. There were records in the ancient books that the nine heavens divine world and the entire six worlds were a burial ground. Some people were puzzled. They did not know why the great thousand worlds outside the southern wall were attacking the divine world and the six worlds. Some people were panicking. They thought that the six worlds were coming to an end. Even the divine world of the six worlds would not be able to survive this calamity. Some people were praying that their ancestors could return quickly. Otherwise, the divine world would be hopeless. 3 days later, as if it had sensed the pressure and tension in the world, as if it had sensed the panic and doubt in the hearts of all living beings, the horizon of the world finally appeared. On this day, a decree lit up the entire nine heavens divine world, inviting the leaders of the major sects to Tsang Prefecture. This was the first time in history that Tsang Prefecture had issued an imperial decree. It was also the first time so many people were invited to Tsang Prefecture. However, this time, no one felt honored, and no one was excited or happy. Even more people had heavy hearts. The fear in the depths of their hearts had not disappeared. Everyone knew that something big must have happened if the world's edge had made a move. This big matter might be related to the nine heavens divine world, the six worlds, or the great thousand worlds outside the southern wall. In short, the appearance of the world's edge was not a good thing for the world. However, what would the world's edge do after it appeared? Would it be a bad thing or a good thing? All of this depended on the world's edge. Am I going alone? Jiang Chen stood in the teleportation array of the Nine Heavens Imperial Court and asked, as the Prince of the Nine Heavens Imperial Court, "You are not coming with me?" The Tsang Prefecture only invited the leaders of the major sections. Zhu Tianchong said, "Now, you are the leader of the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. Therefore, only you can go." But will I be able to go? Jiang Chen began to doubt himself for the first time. This was because not only was his identity extraordinary, but his every word and action represented the entire Nine Heavens Imperial Court. Moreover, this time something big would happen. It was even life-threatening. Go ahead. Since you're the emperor of the Jotian dynasty, if you're in trouble, even if the Jotian dynasty does everything it can, even if we're destroyed, we'll protect you, said Zhou Tianzhong seriously. Even though I'm a substitute emperor, I'm still the emperor. What Joshin means is that I'll be in charge of everything in the Nine Heavens dynasty while he's gone. Even if the Nine Skies Imperial Court is destroyed because of me, you don't care? Asked Jiang Chen. That is what father means. Zhu Tianzhong nodded. Otherwise, why would he let you be the acting emperor? If that's the case, Jiang Chen murmured. A glint flashed across his eyes as he said, I won't let him down. Then Jiang Chen turned on the teleportation formation. He stepped into the teleportation channel slowly amidst the multicolored light. Zhu Tianchong's voice sounded in his ears. Give my Jotian Imperial Court some face. Jiang Chun had already stepped into the teleportation channel. After hearing that, a smile appeared on his face as he muttered to himself, "Indeed, it's time to give you guys some face. Otherwise, I'll be letting you guys down, and also letting me down." Half a day later, in front of a canyon at the border of Tsang State. This was the official passage into Tsang State. If one wanted to enter Tsang State, one could enter from all directions. However, Tsang State had a rule that if one wanted to enter Tsang State, one had to take this path to be considered official. If one entered Tsang State from other places, they would be considered to be provoking Tsang State and would be severely punished or even killed. When Jiangchen arrived, there were already many people here. As far as the eye could see, everyone who had come here was a chief god. On top of that, they were all peak chief gods. This was because the people invited by Tsang State this time were all leaders of a force. As leaders, they might not be the strongest in the force, but their cultivation would definitely not be low. Which sect's leader is this? Lower true god? Where did he come from? Did he come to the wrong place? At this moment, many people saw Jiang Chun, and their expressions were rather strange. Among a group of peak overgods, there was suddenly an additional lower true god. He was like a crane in a flock of chickens. It was hard not to be conspicuous, even if one wanted to. He's Tian Chen's reincarnation. This lifetime's name is Jiang Chun. I heard that he's currently the leader of the Nine Skies Court. Someone said the truth, but there were still many people who looked at him with contempt. So what if he was the leader of the Nine Skies Court? With such a low cultivation, he had no right to speak here. I heard that the Nine Skies Court has come into being. The true leader should be Jiao Shun, right? Where is he? Does he not dare to come? A man with a snow-white sharp sword said coldly. When he looked at Jiang Chun, his eyes were filled with killing intent. What a coincidence! Cloud Sword Sect. Someone mocked. Cloud Sword Sect has also been passed down for several generations. When the Nine Skies Court was at its peak, Cloud Sword Sect was almost destroyed by the Nine Skies Court. I wonder if this Cloud Sword Sect master will make a move on Jiang Chun. At that moment, Jiang Chen's expression was calm with a hint of a smile on his face. When he looked at the Cloud Sword Sect master, he could not help but raise his eyebrows. Was this the provocation? At least, that was what the Cloud Sword Sect master thought. However, before he could make a move, a beam of light descended from afar. A man enveloped in holy light walked over. Before he arrived, a beam of holy light that resembled a true dragon charged toward Jiang Chun. The Lord of Light. So strong. He's attacking directly? Everyone was shocked as they looked at Jiang Chun, wanting to see how this lower true god would block this attack from the Lord of Light. Do you think it's appropriate to bully my disciple like this? Boom! Right then, a light voice sounded. Then, a palm landed across the air and shattered that beam of holy light. Then, Katsura Matsuda arrived in the blink of an eye and stood beside Jiang Chun with a lazy look on his face. He picked his ears, narrowed his eyes, and smiled at the Lord of Light. "Why don't I spar with you before we head to Tsang Continent?" Katsura Matsuda, sect master of the sky-reaching sect. The Lord of Light snorted softly and said, "There will be plenty of chances. No hurry. You were so mighty in your previous life. In this life, do you only know how to hide behind others? Someone like you is like an ant now. Even if you kill them, no one will care about you." Right then, a beam of fire descended, followed by a gentle breeze. The raging flame master god and the soaring wind master god came together and went straight for Jiang Chun. They seemed to have no qualms about killing Jiang Chun even in front of Katsura Matsuda. "You're afraid, aren't you?" Jiang Chun said softly, a hint of mockery flashing across his eyes. "You're afraid that after I recover to my peak, all 36 of you will die, right?" Chapter 9:25. Blazing flame, light, high wind, and the rest were all 36 peak chief gods. In their eyes, an ordinary lower true god cultivator was like an ant. They would not even look at him straight in the eye. However, when facing Jiang Chun, they had no choice but to take him seriously. It was all because they were truly afraid. Back then, the 36 strongest peak chief gods joined forces and secretly ambushed Jiangchun, setting up various formations and restrictions. Only then did they manage to kill him. If they had not been prepared for that battle, they might have been the ones who died. Only they knew how terrifying Jiangchun was at his peak, terrifyingly strong. Because of that, when they learned that Jiangchun had reincarnated, fear and dread appeared in each of their hearts. Back then, they did not hesitate to pay a huge price to send people to the godless continent to kill Jiangchun. It was precisely because of that hint of fear and dread in their hearts. But now, Jiangchun had returned. Although his cultivation realm was low, they were still afraid after all. However, Jiangchun spoke their hearts out in front of so many people at this moment. How could they admit it? This time is different from the past. You will die. High Wind Chief God said with a frosty expression. No one can save you. Oh, different from the past? Jiangchun said softly. How is it different? Ah. Blazing Flame Chief God snorted contemptuously. This time, the leaders of all the top forces in the divine world of 9 heavens are gathered at the world's edge. So what? Jiangchun asked. That means that all 36 of us will appear here. Not a single one less. Light Chief God said solemnly. Do you think you can still live? The moment these words came out, the expressions of everyone around changed. With the 36 strongest chief gods of the divine world of 9 heavens appearing at the same time and joining forces, even a godly king would have to bear a grudge. That was an extremely powerful force. After Jiangchun's fall back then, half of the divine world of 9 heavens was practically their call. Even those top sects that had ancient god kings holding down the fort didn't dare to rashly start a war with these 36 people. You really think highly of me, Jiangchun said softly. He shrugged indifferently and asked again, so what? You can't kill me today. Really? Do you think that a single Katsura Matsuda will be able to protect you? The Sovereign of Light said disdainfully. He is indeed very strong, but it's still not enough. Wang! Wang! As soon as he finished speaking, everyone heard the sound of air being torn apart. Then, one figure after another stepped out of the void, each of them exuding an extremely powerful aura. Some were shrouded in light, some were enveloped in darkness, some were standing on golden lotuses, and some were floating in the sea. They're all here. All 36 pinnacle chief gods have arrived. At this moment, many people gasped. Even the ancient god monarchs felt their hearts clench. These 36 people were enough to wipe out half of the 9 heavens divine world. Kid, this is getting out of hand, Katsura Matsuda said with an ugly expression. If it doesn't work out, I'll cover the rear. You leave first. Sect Master, since I'm here, there's no need to fear them, Jiangchun said softly, his eyes shining with confidence. He was not only the ruler of the 9 heavens court now. Tianchun, it's time to send you on your way. You deserve to die. At this moment, 36 extremely terrifying auras flooded the place. Even the laws and order of the void were collapsing. As though the divine light had been cut off, the world lost its color. Only those 36 people seemed to be the only ones in this world. Too strong. Everyone was shocked. With these 36 people joining forces, even a pinnacle god king would fall. Many people were shocked. They wondered how strong Jiangchun had been back then. He was able to make these 36 people join hands with him. He's my man. At this moment, a red robe floated down and stood beside Jiangchun. Her long hair reached her waist, and starlight flowed around her body. Sect Master of the Ground Extermination Sect, Hong Yi. Someone revealed the man's identity, and an odd look appeared on his face. He wondered himself when Jiangchun had started to hook up with the red coat. Even Katsura Matsuda was stunned. He went to the forbidden area of the East Sea before, so he didn't know the relationship between Jiangchun and Hong Yi. Not bad, kid. You got Hong. You just like that? Katsura Matsuda was stunned for a few seconds, then gave Jiangchun a thumbs up with a face full of admiration. Sect Master, now is not the time to joke. Jiangchun smiled bitterly and pointed at the 36 people. These people are not to be trifled with. I like to eat meat, At this moment, a man shrouded in purple energy walked out. He came before Jiang Chun and clasped his hands. Dongfang family, Dongfang Wang Ri. Oh, you're here to help me? Jiang Chun asked curiously. I'm here because of Wakako. Dongfang Wang Ri said seriously. Right now, he's an honored guest of my Dongfang family. He can be considered as half a member of the Dongfang family. Wakako, this kid, is doing pretty well. Jiang Chun smiled and clasped his hands towards Dongfang Wang Ri. Many thanks. Count my power sect in. My 100-flower sect's son-in-law must not be lost. He's the saint of the school adjacent to mine. At this moment, a few more people walked over. They were the sect master of the power sect, the sect master of the 100-flower sect, and the dean of the neighboring school. So what if a few of you join forces? Can you stop us? The darkness master god said with contempt. Even if all of you join forces, you won't be able to stop us. Don't ruin your own future. The light master god said coldly. We only want his life. It has nothing to do with you. Taking his life is the same as taking my life. Red Shirt was extremely domineering. He stared at the light master god and said, if not for the temple of light behind you, the light race would have been destroyed long ago. The Cleaver sect and the Sky Reaching School have been separated for several eras. They're no longer the same as before. Even if I don't have the temple of light behind me, I don't fear you, the light master god said. As soon as he said that, the light master god's aura surged. A ray of holy light slashed down at Jiang Chun like a sharp sword that could split open the heavens. Following the light master god's attack, the other few chief gods also made their moves. For a moment, the winds and clouds changed. Rules and order were collapsing. There was even the aura of Great Tao that turned into mist and scattered everywhere. After 3,000 years, the 36 pinnacle chief gods joined forces once again. Many people retreated, afraid that they would be implicated. There were also some ancient god kings who looked terrible. They knew that they wouldn't be able to stop the combined attack of the 36 of them. In fact, they would be killed in a single exchange. He's the sect master of Tenshin Shinzo. Master! All of a sudden, a few furious roars that shook the heavens came from afar. Then, the void shattered, and two men charged over. One of them had runes rising from his body and was stepping on a grand formation. There were even restrictions and barriers floating on both sides. Chapter 9:26. Covered in runes, standing on formations and surrounded by barriers and restrictions. This person was a master of formations. Moreover, his cultivation level was extremely high, reaching peak chief god level. There was even a faint divine halo around him, a sign that he was about to step into the godly king level. Master! At that moment, this person rushed up to Jiang Chun and knelt down to pay his respects. His eyes were slightly red, and his body was trembling, either from agitation or other emotions. A hint of sorrow flashed across Jiang Chun's eyes as well. He looked at the man in front of him, helped him up, and sighed. Are you the only one left? The man opened his mouth but closed it again. He was worried that he would choke the moment he opened his mouth. A fish that escaped the net from Tenshin Shinzo. Tian Chun, this is the last disciple of your previous life. Today, I'll send all of you to reunite. The chief god of light and the others stared at the man with stern expressions, their eyes flashing with wariness. This person was Jiang Chun's eldest disciple in his previous life. He had great attainments in formations like Jiang Chun and was about to step into the godly king level. If this person was not eliminated, these peak chief gods were destined to feel uneasy. It's good that there's still one left. Jiang Chun sighed, feeling bitter and helpless. Of the few disciples under the previous Tenshin Shinzo, only one was left now. However, just as Jiang Chun had said, it was already good enough that there was still one left. After all, even he had fallen in that chaos. Even a peak chief god, like a divine spirit cultivator, had met with a calamity. It was good enough that there was still someone alive among that group of people back then. This was a very cruel truth, But Jiang Chun had no choice but to accept it. Time had passed, and when he returned to the nine heavens, he was no longer whole. "You're also alive." At that moment, Jiang Chun looked at another man. This person had not spoken since he arrived. When he looked at Jiang Chun, a hint of resentment flashed in his eyes. He was the moon goddess brother. Jiang Chun knew why he had such hatred in his eyes. It was because the moon goddess had sacrificed herself for Jiang Chun. That was why Jiang Chun was reincarnated. "She's still alive," Jiang Chun said softly. "She is also reincarnated. I found her in the lower realm, and now she is about to ascend." "Is she still alive?" Yu Xianchen asked softly. His eyes seemed to light up. "That was hope." "Very good. Everyone is here today. I'll send you all on your way." At that moment, the 36 pinnacle chief gods attacked. Attacks filled the sky, accompanied by the laws and order. The power of the great Tao poured down from the sky like a flood. In that instant, this world was drowned out. There was radiance everywhere, as well as killing intent. Jiang Chun didn't flinch, and neither did the people around him. They stood side by side, their auras rising like dragons soaring into the clouds. Since he had come here today, he would not retreat. Wang. However, all of a sudden, the attacks of the 36 chief gods disappeared. The sky regained its clarity, and even their auras were suppressed. At the same time, Jiang Chun and the others also sensed that there seemed to be a living being watching them from the depths of the canyon. Just a moment ago, a terrifying divine consciousness erupted and swept through this world, obliterating the attacks of the 36 chief gods. There is a great enemy outside, yet you are still uneasy inside. A voice filled with vicissitudes of life came from the depths of the canyon. It sighed softly. "Everything is about to be destroyed, yet you are still in the mood to fight amongst yourselves here? Senior, this is a personal feud between us," the light chief god said in a low voice. He cupped his fists in the direction of the canyon and said, "On account of the Palace of Light, can you not interfere in this matter?" "Palace of Light?" The living being in the depths of the canyon said softly. He snorted softly and said, "Even the Lord of Light wouldn't dare to say something like that. A mere junior like you is a little rude." Smack! As soon as he said that, a crisp sound rang out. Everyone was flabbergasted as they saw that a blood-red palm print had actually appeared on the face of the radiant master god. He was slapped in the face? "Senior, you've gone overboard." The light chief god's face was as dark as stagnant water. He stared at the depths of the canyon and said coldly, "The world's edge is strong, but the Palace of Light is not weak either. Senior, aren't you afraid that the Palace of Light will resent you for doing this?" "I wasn't afraid in the past, I'm not afraid now, and I won't be afraid in the future as well." The living being in the depths of the canyon said indifferently, "You're too young. Senior, since that's the case, I'll represent the Palace of Light and refuse to enter the Tsang region today." The light chief god's reputation was tarnished. With a roar, he turned around and was about to leave. Bam! However, the next moment, he was slapped back by a palm that was shrouded in holy light. He was forcefully slapped out of the void. "The senior from the world's edge is right. You're too young." On the other side of the void, an ethereal voice rang out with a hint of anger. "As for you, you have no right to represent the Palace of Light." Old Master, the light chief god, was shocked. He had not expected that his own old master would be paying attention to this place. And now, his old master's intention was clear. Was he blaming him? This person is the leader of the Palace of Light outside. He's young and ignorant. I hope that the world's edge can forgive him. On the other side of the void, the expert from the Palace of Light seemed to be apologizing. This caused everyone to be extremely shocked. They secretly wondered how strong the world's edge was. To think that it could make an old master of the Palace of Light bow his head and apologize in front of so many people. It's all right. He's just a child. The living being in the depths of the canyon did not seem to mind. And as his voice fell, the mountain rocks that were originally blocking the sides of the canyon disappeared. A path that led to the depths of the canyon appeared. "Come in, all of you." The voice of that living being was filled with vicissitudes. It was as though he had lived for countless years and was standing on the river of time. "This person is not simple." Jiangchen was shocked. He could clearly sense that there was actually the power of time in that voice. This was a supreme power that ordinary people could not control at all. In fact, it was difficult to even fathom it. And Jiangchen was certain that the living being in the canyon had definitely mastered the power of time. Never underestimate the world's edge, Katsura Matsuda reminded him secretly. This power is not ordinary. You must not provoke it. Sect leader, aren't you talking nonsense? Jiangchen rolled his eyes. As long as one was not a fool, they would know that they must definitely not provoke the world's edge. If they did, they would end up like the light chief god and be slapped in the face. In fact, if not for the fact that the light chief god had the light palace behind him, that slap would not have been as simple as a slap to the face. It was extremely likely that he would have been suppressed on the spot. "You Xianqin, old one, the two of you don't have to come in." Just as everyone was about to step into the canyon, that voice rang out once more. "If you are not the leaders of a power, you have no right to enter the Tsang region and no right to come to the world's edge." Chapter 9:27. The world's edge had only invited the leaders of the top forces this time. Unrelated personnel were not allowed to enter. When Old One and Yuxianchen heard that, they frowned and glanced at Jiangchen, seemingly worried about him. "Don't worry. Since he's here, he's a guest of the world's edge." The old man in the depths of the canyon said, "The world's edge will take responsibility for his life." "Thank you, Senior." Old One cupped his hands and glanced at the Master God of Light from the corner of his eye. He said coldly, "If Master loses a single hair, I'll wipe out your entire clan." "Huh. Do you have the strength to do so?" The Master God of Light said disdainfully. "Old One, just wait for me outside," Jiangchen said softly. He pointed at the Master God of Light and mocked, "You'll suffer." Finally, the group stepped into the canyon and entered the Tsang region along the main path. The Tsang region was huge. However, there were few living beings here. Many places were barren. After passing through the canyon, the group arrived at a plain. Although the plain looked barren, the yuan qi of heaven and earth was extremely dense. Moreover, the power of the great Tao here was very strong and pure. It was a holy land for cultivation. This is the Tsang region? A mere plain is a holy land for cultivation. This is the first time I've come to the Tsang region. It's indeed extraordinary. Many people exclaimed as they looked beyond the plain. There were beautiful mountains and rivers there. They thought that perhaps this plain was the most barren place in the Tsang region. "Everyone, I've gathered all of you here today for two matters." Right at that moment, a gray-haired old man appeared before the group. His body was a little hunched, and his hair was messy. His eyes were turbid and dull, as if he was past his prime. However, no one dared to underestimate him. That was because there were a few ancient god kings present. When they saw this old man, they were extremely shocked. With a single look, they could tell that this old man's cultivation had surpassed that of a god king. "Senior, what are the two matters?" The sect master of the power sect cupped his hands and asked respectfully. As for the others, their faces were filled with respect as well. No one dared to show any signs of rebellion, at least before they shed all pretense of cordiality. Everyone's attitude toward Tianya was the same: reverence. The golden age is about to descend. Everything will awaken, and vitality will rise. The environment for cultivation will change drastically. As long as your talent is not weak, you can become a god king. Cold light flickered through the old man's eyes as he glanced past the 36 peak over gods. This caused the hearts of the radiant master god and the others to skip a beat as they wondered to themselves. Are they here to target us today? 10,000 flowers wither, but in the end new grass grows. The old man whispered, "The flourishing age is not only the age of the older generation, but also the age of the new generation." "Senior, just get to the point," Jiang Chan said softly. Since we're all here, we should be prepared. Kid, you're quite direct. The gray-haired old man laughed. Subsequently, the gray-haired old man coughed a few times, organized his thoughts, and slowly explained. Tianya adhered to the principle of maintaining the balance between heaven and earth and abided by the principle of all living things. Therefore, in this flourishing age, rules had to be set. The strong should not bully the weak, and the high realm should not bully the low realm. Is that all? Someone asked. That's all. The old man nodded. Then, he glanced at the Light Master Gods group and said, the 36 of you, as peak Master Gods, have joined forces to deal with a lower true God outside the canyon earlier on, that has broken the rules set down by our world's end. Those are the rules of Tianya, not the rules of Dark God Palace. That's right. Dark God Palace did not agree to that. The Darkness Master God and the Darkness Master God spoke up immediately, their attitudes very forceful. When everyone heard that, they looked at the two of them in surprise, secretly thinking that they were really bold. Even if they were unhappy with the rules set by Tianya, they couldn't possibly say it out loud in front of others, right? Didn't they know that this was Tinya's territory now? Didn't they know that as long as this old man was willing, no one present would be able to leave alive? However, to everyone's surprise, the old man nodded and did not blame the Darkness Master God and the Darkness Master God. Instead, he chuckled and said, Dark God Palace has appeared as well. It's been a long time since I've heard news about them. The Golden Age is upon us, and all the heroes are fighting for supremacy. How can Dark God Palace be left out? The Darkness Master God raised his brows. Perhaps your Tianya is no longer the strongest in this era. At this moment, many people wiped off their cold sweat, especially the 36 Master Gods. A few of them even took a few steps back, as though they wanted to distance themselves from the Darkness Master God. After all, his words were too provocative. The two of you shut up first. You can continue after I'm done. The old man said softly, with a gentle wave of his skinny palm. The Darkness Master God and the Darkness Master God fell from the sky. Then, two streaks of clouds appeared and stabbed into the bodies of the two like giant swords, suppressing them. They really don't know their place. The Light Master God cursed silently. What a pig-like teammate. Didn't they see that he had been slapped in the face outside the canyon? Didn't they see the Light God Palace's old master scolding him? Here, you're nothing. You should listen to me. Everyone here has lived for quite a long time, right? In the eyes of ordinary people, and even cultivators, you're all considered old monsters. After suppressing the Darkness Master God and the Darkness Master God, the gray-haired old man mocked. People like me should be considered old farts in your eyes. Senior, you must be joking. Cultivators have long lifespans to begin with. It's normal for them to live for a few eras. An ancient god king said, but we of the older generation have to leave eventually. We'll either turn into dust or turn into smoke. Behind us are the living beings of the new generation. When we chase after the world, we have to leave some space for the later generations. If the blooming of flowers is only temporary, and there are no more flowers to be seen in the future, this world will have lost all hope. When everyone heard that, they all nodded in agreement. No matter which faction it was, no matter how strong it was, they would take in disciples and nurture experts. That was because their legacies could not be broken. Their incense could not be broken. As living beings, there would be a time for them to leave. Once they were all gone, this world would be handed over to the younger generations. Everyone, give the younger generations hope. Don't bully them. The gray-haired old man's expression suddenly turned serious. A cold glint flashed in his eyes as he said, if the world's edge finds out that someone is bullying the weak, the old, or the young, then don't blame the world's edge for being heartless. Senior, what do you mean by bullying the weak? There has to be a division, right? Someone frowned and glanced at Jiangchen. At that moment, Jiangchen also felt that many people's gazes were on him. Someone even said directly, is the reincarnation of God King Tianchen considered strong or weak? Is he considered weak or strong? Since he's reincarnated, we have to start from the beginning. Tian Chun is his previous life. In this life, he's Jiang Chun. He's cultivated for less than 100 years, so he's naturally weak. His cultivation is only at the lower true God realm, so he's naturally weak. The gray-haired old man narrowed his eyes and asked, "Do you have any objections?" Chapter 9:28. The words of the gray-haired old man had Jiang Chun feeling rather touched. However, the others could not quite accept it. This was especially the case for the Master God of Light's group. Their faces darkened. If Jiang Chun was considered weak, that meant that they could not lay a hand on Jiang Chun. How were they going to kill Jiang Chun then? Senior, I don't think this is appropriate. The Master God of Light had been taken advantage of previously. Therefore, he was much more careful with his words now. He bowed to the gray-haired old man and said slowly, "At the end of the day, he is still Tian Chun. His foundation is there, and his foundation is deep. He cannot be seen as weak." "Oh, what do you think?" The gray-haired old man looked at the Master God of Light with a fake smile. However, there was a cold glint in the depths of his eyes. The Master God of Light's heart skipped a beat. He opened his mouth, but did not dare to continue. That was because he had already understood that the rules set by the world's edge could not be changed. And the words of this gray-haired old man were just like an imperial edict that could not be changed. "Senior, can you be more specific?" someone asked. "Beyond 2 cultivation states, no one is allowed to lay a hand on anyone." The gray-haired old man said sternly, "This is the rule. 2 cultivation states? That's acceptable." "Sure." Many people nodded their heads. After all, they had their own disciples as well. They were also afraid that others would bully them and kill them. If there was such a rule, their disciples would be much safer. However, for the Master God of Light's group, not being able to lay a hand on those 2 cultivation states higher, that wasn't too good, was it? They were all peak Master Gods who surpassed Jiang Chun by more than 2 cultivation states. Is the world's edge trying to protect Jiang Chun? Someone asked directly. After all, out of everyone present, Jiang Chun was the only lower true God. Furthermore, he was the one with the lowest cultivation state. Therefore, many people were suspicious. What was the meaning of the world's edge? Were they trying to protect Jiang Chun openly? All living things in the world are equal in the eyes of the world's edge. The gray-haired old man said softly, "The world's edge made this decision not just for myself. But why do I feel as though he is protecting Jiang Chun?" Even though the darkness Master God was being suppressed, his mouth was still able to move. His face was filled with fury and resentment. A great chief god had actually been suppressed by someone, and it had been done in front of so many people. "Don't the Dark God Hall have any juniors? Do you believe that I won't kill all the juniors of your Dark God Palace?" Song Tingtao said coldly. "What's wrong with Tinya's decision? I think it's pretty good too. At least we can leave a place for the younger generation to explore on their own." The sect leader of the Powers sect nodded. In addition, the other ancient god kings nodded as well. This was a good thing for any force. This was especially true for the top geniuses of the various forces. With this rule, they didn't have to worry about being harmed by the strong at all. Actually, this rule is not bad. But we can't do anything to Tian Chun. If we keep him alive, he'll be a disaster sooner or later. Among the 36 peak chief gods, a few of them were also swayed. They felt that this rule was indeed acceptable. However, they were still unhappy that they couldn't kill Jiang Chun with their own hands. "It's decided then," the gray-haired old man said. "If anyone violates this rule, don't blame Tinya for killing them." "Yes, respect Tinya." Everyone nodded. Even the 36 peak chief gods didn't dare to make a sound. They didn't know how strong Tinya was. They only knew that even their own patriarchs were wary of them. "There's one more thing." The gray-haired old man pointed to the sky and said, "Everyone, do you see that? There are already people from the greater thousand world outside the southern wall. They're just waiting for the southern wall to collapse." "What are they doing?" someone asked. Perhaps they're looking for something or someone, but one thing's for sure. Once the southern wall collapses, there will be war. The gray-haired old man sighed. I've called everyone here today to discuss how to deal with those people from the Greater Thousand World. What's there to discuss? I heard from the patriarch that the creatures of the Greater Thousand World are extremely powerful. We can't deal with them. Master God Lingfeng said in a deep voice. Continue to deal with them? These words were undoubtedly to destroy their own prestige and boost the morale of others. However, no one said anything. They knew that Master God Lingfeng was right. There had always been a rumor that the Greater Thousand World outside the southern wall was filled with powerhouses. There were as many God Kings and even powerhouses above God Kings as there were stars in the sky. There were even quite a number of top God Emperors. And what did the Nine Heavens Divine Realm have? A few God Emperors were hibernating, forming a forbidden zone and ignoring the secular world. They must have lived for too long. Their chi and blood were exhausted, and they couldn't move. And how many cultivators above God Kings were there? Thinking about it, if the southern wall collapsed, the Nine Heavens Divine Realm would also be destroyed. Tinya can naturally deal with it, but we can't protect the Nine Heavens Divine Realm. The gray-haired old man sighed. Among those present, should there be some secrets? The ancestors who once went to war are on their way back. What we need to do is to delay them until they return. When everyone heard this, many nodded secretly. This kind of secret was not considered a secret to people of their level. However, Jiangchen was very curious. He asked, Ancestors, where did they go to war? Who did they fight with? With unknown creatures. The gray-haired old man frowned and shook his head. I don't know the details. I heard that they were fighting with the heavens. An ancient god king said in a deep voice. My clan has ancient books that were passed down from the primordial era. The reason why the ancestors went on an expedition was that something happened to the heavens, and they had no choice but to go. If they didn't go, the heavens would collapse and all living beings would be destroyed. Is it that exaggerated? The sect master of power sect curled his lips. Naturally, he did not believe it. One had to know that the heavens were originally something of nothingness. How could there be a battle? He was more willing to believe that the reason why the ancestors left was most likely because they went to war in the Greater Thousand World. As for the battle with the heavens, it was complete nonsense. However, the gray-haired old man shook his head with a strange expression. He said, Maybe they really went to war with the heavens. Senior, do you know something? Katsura Matsuda asked hurriedly. I don't know much, and it's not all. It's meaningless to say. The gray-haired old man said softly. Then his expression turned serious. He said, Now you only need to know one thing. If the southern wall is broken, we have to put aside all grievances and fight against the enemy together. Of course, we'll talk about it when the time comes. Everyone's attitude was different. Some were passive, and some were firm. Jiang Chun pointed to the sky and asked, Now, those living beings outside the heavens, what's the highest cultivation level? These people should be the vanguard to test our strength. Their cultivation levels are not very high. They should be peak god kings. The gray-haired old man looked solemn and smiled bitterly. Those who came from the Greater Thousand World are all peak god kings. And we. Chapter 9:29. The people who came to fight were all peak divine kings. How many peak divine kings were there in the ninth heaven divine world? Looking at it this way, the difference in strength between the two sides was too big. Many people lost confidence. If the southern wall collapsed, how could they fight this battle? Everyone, don't worry too much. As long as we can hold on until the ancestors return, or until the golden age arrives, then we won't be afraid of them. The gray-haired old man said. There was no need to say how strong the ancestors of the six realms were. Otherwise, how could they travel so far and fight? However, could they really wait for their return? If they couldn't, then they would have to wait for the golden age of the ninth heaven divine world to arrive. Under the golden age, cultivation became extremely simple. Many creatures had hoped to become divine kings in a short period of time, and those ancient divine kings might also transform and advance because of this, or even become divine emperors. However, no one knew how long the southern wall could hold on. Even those present did not know where the southern wall was. The gray-haired old man said it casually, but in reality, everyone knew that the world's edge was also afraid. If the ninth heaven divine world was destroyed, the entire six realms would be finished. Now, there was only the ninth heaven divine world left in the six realms. If this place failed, everything would end. Then, according to the current situation, the ninth heaven divine world is not suitable to start a civil war. An ancient divine king said, "Truce. Personal grudges, the grudges between the sects, let's put them aside for now." The gray-haired old man sighed and said, "If we still want to start a civil war at this moment, then we are really courting death." When these words came out, the radiant sovereign and the others nodded. Although they were ambitious, they were even more clear about one thing. They were people of the ninth heaven divine world. If the ninth heaven divine world was destroyed, they would also cease to exist. At that time, all of their efforts and everything would turn into smoke. I don't need to say much about the older generation, but for the younger generation, now is the time for them to grow up. The gray-haired old man said, "So, the world's edge has decided to establish an academy to guide the younger generation. How to establish it? Is the world's edge willing to take out its foundation?" Someone asked, his eyes full of passion. The world's edge, an immortal force. How deep its foundation was unimaginable. What people cared about the most was the cultivation technique of the world's edge, the heavenly mystery freedom technique. According to legend, this cultivation technique originated from the beginning of the world, and it was an ancient scripture condensed from the talisman markings of the Grand Tao. Once this cultivation technique was successfully cultivated, one would be able to transform into the heavenly Tao, see through the secrets of the heavens, and transcend everything in the mortal world. Everyone, now that things have come to this, we have to work together. We can't be selfish anymore. The gray-haired old man's expression turned serious, and he said, "The world's edge will not only take out the heavenly mystery freedom art, but also the heavenly treasures and elixirs that we have accumulated over several eras to build the academy. Righteousness at the end of the world." Someone exclaimed in admiration, but in his heart, he was pondering how to obtain the heavenly mystery freedom technique. However, the gray-haired old man's next words caused everyone to fall silent. In fact, their expressions turned somewhat ugly. "My world's edge has taken out the heavenly mystery freedom art. In that case, shouldn't the forces that you belong to also express your gratitude?" The gray-haired old man said, "The radiant Saint Hall of the Radiant Palace, the sky-reaching cult's heaven-span sage scripture, the dark God Hall's ancient scripture of darkness, and so on, all of these have to be taken out. Senior, do you know that these cultivation techniques are the foundation of our forces? They are never divulged to outsiders." The sect master of the power sect said in a deep voice, "If we do that, wouldn't we be exposing our own secrets?" That's right. We can take out the other cultivation techniques, but where our own foundations lie, we truly cannot take them out, the radiant master god said in a deep voice. Many people nodded their heads. Katsura Matsuda and Hong E stood on the side of the radiant master god this time as well. What kind of joke was that? Take out the trump cards of their own forces? How could something like that happen? However, the gray-haired old man's intentions were clear. He looked at everyone with a smile and asked, "Whether you live or die, it's all up to you to decide. Of course, all of you can rest assured. If anyone cultivates your cultivation techniques, that person will naturally become your disciple." The gray-haired old man continued, "Furthermore, they will leave a mark on it so that it cannot be divulged to outsiders." "But that's still too risky," Katsura Matsuda said in a deep voice. The heavenly canon was left behind by the old master. "It cannot be divulged to outsiders. I've already taken out the heavenly mystery freedom art of my world's edge. Why do you guys have to mind so much?" The gray-haired old man narrowed his eyes and glared at Katsura Matsuda. He asked, Could it be that you think that the heavenly canon is comparable to the heavenly mystery freedom art? The moment those words came out, Katsura Matsuda's face turned somewhat strange and indignant. If not for the fact that he was wary of this gray-haired old man, he really wanted to say out loud, the heavenly canon is indeed more powerful than the heavenly mystery freedom art of your world's edge. Senior, although we are the leaders of an organization, this is a matter of great importance. We have to go back and ask our seniors. Someone said, the world's edge should be able to understand, right? Of course. The gray-haired old man nodded. You have 3 days to consider. Senior, there's something I'm not sure if I should ask. The High Wind Sovereign frowned. Ask, where will this academy be built? How will the disciples be recruited? When the time comes, who will be in charge of this academy? The High Wind Sovereign asked. Everyone will be in charge, of course. The gray-haired old man laughed. As seniors, we should provide guidance to the juniors. After the academy is built, we will all be its instructors. As for the disciples, they will naturally be recruited from the entire world. The moment these words came out, the High Wind Sovereign's face turned even uglier. This was because the gray-haired old man had not said where the academy would be built. Quite a few people noticed this as well. They all stared at the gray-haired old man with gleaming eyes, but no one dared to question him. A few breaths later, it was the Light Sovereign who braced himself and asked, Senior, you haven't said where the academy will be built. Oh! The gray-haired old man patted his head and laughed. Look at this memory of mine. With that, he pointed at his feet and said, Of course it will be built in Sangzhou. Then we will have to stay in Sangzhou and teach the juniors. The Flame Sovereign said solemnly. Of course. The gray-haired old man nodded. The world's edge is short on manpower. Naturally, the positions of instructors will have to be filled by all of you. At this moment, the expressions of everyone present froze. Even those ancient god kings' faces darkened. If the academy was built in Sangzhou, they would have to teach in the academy. Didn't this mean that they would be trapped in the academy, trapped in Sangzhou? This was a disguised form of imprisoning them. The world's edge. Is this really all right? The sect master of the power sect said coldly, On the surface, it's building an academy, but in reality, it's putting us under house arrest, right? Chapter 930. Li Zong's way of doing things had always been straightforward. At this moment, a cold glint flashed in the gray-haired old man's eyes. He stared at Li Zong and said coldly, You can have your own ideas, but they may not be correct. I, Tianya, am doing this for the common people. For the common people? Heh, I think you want to unify the 9 heavens divine world. I'm afraid the one who wants to start a civil war is you, Tianya. The raging flame sovereign looked terrible. The others looked terrible too. After all, as the leader of a major force, who would be willing to be put under house arrest? Everyone, if you don't believe in Tianya, you can leave now. The gray-haired old man exuded a murderous aura. When he opened and closed his eyes, there seemed to be swords floating in them. His aura became extremely sharp, like a sharp sword that was about to be unsheathed. At this moment, everyone's hearts tightened. Many of them only realized that they were now in Sangzhou's Tianya's territory. It was obviously irrational to go against Tianya here. Senior, I have to go back and discuss with the old ancestors. This is a serious matter. I can't make the decision alone. That's right. We have to go back and discuss. For a moment, many of them admitted defeat. They wanted to delay and leave this place first. The gray-haired old man had no objection to this. He reminded them, I'll give you 3 days. Yes, 3 days. Okay. In the end, many of them left. The 36 peak overgods turned around and left without saying a word. When they left, their eyes swept across Jiangchun. Each of them had a murderous look in their eyes. Senior, the 9 Heavens Court is willing to contribute to the establishment of the academy. At this moment, Jiangchun bowed to the gray-haired old man and said with a smile, I wonder if it's possible. As soon as he said this, Katsura Matsuda and Hong Yi's faces stiffened. They looked at Jiang Chun strangely. Couldn't he see through Tianya's intentions? In the name of establishing the academy, they wanted to put the leaders of the major forces under house arrest. From there, they would control the entire Nine Heavens divine world and unify the Nine Heavens. At a time like this, no one dared to be careless, let alone easily agree. As for Jiang Chun, although he was the acting royal lord of the Nine Heavens imperial court, this was a very important matter. Wasn't it a bit rash to make such a decision? Of course you can. The gray-haired old man smiled. It seems that young people are more sensible, unlike those old fogies. It's just that, as you know, senior, I'm only the acting overlord of the Nine Skies Court. I'm not a direct descendant of the Nine Skies Court, so I can't hand over the Nine Skies Court's secret technique, Jiang Chun said. The gray-haired old man was stunned for a moment. He really didn't expect Jiang Chun to do something like this. However, there was nothing he could do. After all, Jiang Chun was only an acting emperor. If he wasn't a direct descendant of the Nine Sky Imperial Court, and if he wasn't a prince, how could he have the Nine Sky Imperial Court's secret techniques? It's fine as long as the Jotian Imperial Court has the heart, whispered the gray-haired old man. He looked calm again, but on the inside he was thinking, Jiao Shun, you're really cunning, leaving the continent of the Nine Clouds at such a time. Senior, I'll go back to the Jotian Imperial Court and explain things. In 3 days, I'll come back to Tsangzhou, said Jiang Chun. Go, nodded the gray-haired old man. He waved at the others and said, go and get ready. In the end, the group dispersed and left Tsangzhou. When they left Tsangzhou and walked out of the valley, Katsura Matsuda stopped Jiang Chun and asked suspiciously, you really can't see Tianya's ambition? So what if I can see it? Said Jiang Chun indifferently. He shrugged and said, it's an irresistible trend. We can only follow Tianya's plan. But we'll lose our freedom, and the group we belong to will be affected. We might even be swallowed by Tianya. Hong Yi also walked over. Her face was cold as she stared at Jiang Chun and asked, don't you have any ideas? Jiang Chun heard this and smiled bitterly. He pointed at himself and asked, even if I have ideas, what can I do? I'm just a low-level true god. Other than going with the flow, what else can I do? Katsura Matsuda and Hong Yi's eyes flashed with disappointment when they heard this. Especially Hong Yi. She stared at Jiang Chun for a full 10 breaths of time. In the end, she sighed and said, you're not him. Sigh. Everyone has their own ambitions. Katsura Matsuda also sighed. He patted Jiang Chun's shoulder and said, be careful. Then the two of them left, leaving Jiang Chun standing alone outside the valley. Old One and Yu Xianchen left. For some reason, there was no one outside the valley. It was very quiet. Jiang Chun stood where he was and looked in the direction where Song Tingtao and Hong Yi had left. A smile appeared at the corners of his mouth. He sighed softly and said, if you were disappointed in me, then don't care about me anymore. After saying this, Jiang Chun also got up and left. Half a day later, Jiang Chun returned to the Nine Skies Court and met with Jiao Tianzhong in the main hall. As soon as they met, Jiang Chun told Jiao Tianzhong about this matter. Jiao Tianzhong was dumbfounded and asked, you agreed. What else can I do? Can the current Nine Skies Court defeat Tianya? Jiang Chun said helplessly, the other forces definitely won't agree to Tianya doing this. When the time comes, the world will attack them. They won't be able to stop it. Jiao Tianzhong said in a deep voice, even though you're the acting emperor of the Nine Skies Court, this matter is very important. How can you make such a hasty decision? As soon as he finished speaking, Jiang Chun suddenly smiled. Gazing at the Nine Skies, he asked, people are guessing that the world's edge wants to put the leaders of the big forces under house arrest so that they can unify the Nine Clouds. But this is all speculation. Jiang Chun said, what if Tianya is really doing this for the Nine Skies divine world? Really? Do you believe it? Jiao Tianzhong said unhappily, Tianya has never come out. This time, if they don't want to unify the Nine Skies divine world, what else can they do? Maybe they really want to protect the nine skies divine world. Jiang Chun said softly. Jiang Chun raised his head and looked at the sky. There were even more sceneries in the sky. There were mountains and rivers, and there were also huge creatures occupying one side. It was like the sun in the sky, blurry and dazzling. In fact, the aura emitted by the creatures in the sky had already affected the nine skies divine world. The clouds were rolling, the sun and moon were dim, and under the clear sky, there was actually a thunderbolt in the sky. If the nine skies divine world is destroyed, can the nine skies court still exist? Jiang Chen asked. The waters of the nine skies divine world are very deep. Zhou Tianzhong said in a deep voice. How do you know that Tianya is really doing this for the nine skies divine world? Maybe they have already betrayed the nine skies divine world. Betrayed? Maybe. Jiang Chun said softly, a cold light flashing in the depths of his eyes. The creatures in the world are all different, and everyone has different thoughts. But one thing is certain. In the face of the strong enemies of the great thousand worlds, there will definitely be people who will betray the nine skies divine world. Chapter 9:31. Under the pressure of the general trend, no one could abide by their own hearts. Whether it was for personal reasons or for public reasons, someone would eventually betray them. However, Jiang Chun dared to believe that the world's edge would never betray them. That was because when Jiang Chun entered Song Prefecture, he saw a vast righteous energy in the depths of Song Prefecture. That was the true righteous energy of heaven and earth. With such an aura, how could the world's edge betray them? One had to know that the world's edge was a force of the divine world of the nine heavens, and the creatures in the force were also native to the divine world of the nine heavens. If they wanted to betray them, the righteous energy of heaven and earth would not fall on the world's edge of Song Prefecture. However, not everyone was able to see the boundless righteous energy. If Jiang Chun had not interacted with Jiang Haoran before, he would not have known that the clouds in the depths of Song Prefecture were righteous energy. However, what puzzled Jiang Chun was that since the world's edge had no possibility of betrayal, why didn't they explain it clearly to the major forces? With the righteous energy of heaven and earth, as long as they explained it clearly, the top forces of the divine world of the nine heavens would most likely support the world's edge, right? Thinking about it carefully, since the world's edge did not want to explain, there was only one reason. They wanted to stir up the water of the nine heavens and find out which fish had betrayed the nine heavens in the muddy water. Tianzhong, if the nine heavens is destroyed one day, will the Zhoutian dynasty rely on the great thousand world or fight to the death? Jiang Chen asked. What do you mean by that? Are you suspecting the Zhoutian dynasty? Zhou Tianzhong said in a deep voice. The Zhoutian dynasty once unified the divine world of the nine heavens. Now, although we can't reach the peak, although we can't unify the nine heavens, we won't do anything to let the nine heavens down. I hope so, Jiang Chen said softly. Then, Jiang Chen took out a silk book with many names written on it. He handed the silk book to Zhou Tianzhong and said, In 3 days, I will go to the world's edge of the Song Prefecture. In your eyes, I am under house arrest. During the days when I am not in the Zhoutian dynasty, you will be in charge of the Zhoutian dynasty. Then what is this? Zhou Tianzhong pointed at the silk book in his hand. Help me look after these people, Jiang Chun said seriously. They are all very important people. If anything happens to them, you are the Emperor Lord now. If you want to take care of them, the Nine Heavens dynasty will naturally do so, Zhou Tianzhong said. Then, he flipped open the silk book. When he saw the names, his face darkened. Zhang Lu, Wakako, Hualyanyi, Bai Fengyu, Zhou Tianzhong murmured. Most of them had never heard of these names before. They didn't even know what they looked like. The continent of the nine clouds was vast and boundless. Where could he go to find these people? How could he take care of them all? If we can find them, we'll bring them back to the Nine Skies Empire. Jiang Chen sighed. If we can't find them, then we'll just have to pray that they're doing well. At that time, Jiang Qin's group of people ascended to the nine firmament's divine world first. Now, there were only a few people who met up with Jiang Qin. By Feng Yu, Hualien Yi, and the others, there was no news of them until now. There was no trace of them. Jiang Qin was a little worried. If something happened to these people, he really couldn't accept it. The relatives, friends, and disciples of his previous life were almost all dead. Jiang Qin was powerless to save them. But in this life, Jiang Qin didn't want to lose the people by his side again. "I'll try my best," Jiao Tianzhong said solemnly. "Oh, right. You can go to Farewell Valley to find them. Their information network is the most up-to-date." Jiang Qin said, "It's time to let Zhu Ming do something. Will Farewell Valley help?" Jiao Tianzhong frowned and said, "Back then, we almost killed Zhu Ming and the others." "They will." Jiang Qin smiled and said, "They definitely will." After saying that, Jiang Qin sighed and raised his head to look at the sky again. His heart was throbbing. He didn't know how long he could persist. Maybe it was the next second, or maybe it was always persisting. And now, what he had to do was to go with the flow in the eyes of others. When Jiang Qin made this decision, Katsura Matsuda and Hong Yi were clearly very disappointed in him. But so what? At least, Jiang Qin understood that he had never changed. Perhaps it would be incomprehensible, but Jiang Qin didn't want to explain. When the clouds and mist dispersed, he would be clear. "By the way, when you went to the Blue Prefecture, someone sent me this box. He asked me to give it to you personally." Jiao Tianchong suddenly recalled something, and he gave Jiang Qin a simple wooden box with carved patterns. "This is?" Jiang Qin was puzzled. He slowly opened the wooden box. When he saw the seemingly ordinary stone in the wooden box, his expression instantly changed greatly. This was a fragment of the southern wall. Jiang Qin couldn't have seen wrongly. It was because he had two pieces of this thing. One was obtained in Eternal City, and the other was obtained at the vast Heaven Conference. The southern wall is about to shatter. Under the stone, there was a slip of paper with these words written on it. At this moment, Jiang Qin's heart suddenly throbbed inexplicably. It was as if the sky was about to collapse. "Who sent it?" Jiang Qin hurriedly asked. That person's cultivation was very high. He left after sending the wooden box. Jiao Tianzhong said in a low voice. He quietly entered the Jiutian imperial court. Even the sect-protecting array couldn't stop him, sending a fragment of the southern wall. "What does that mean?" Jiang Qin was puzzled. "There's one more thing. How long until the ancestor's seal is broken?" Jiao Tianzhong asked. When Jiang Qin heard this, he didn't say much and directly entered the small world behind the bronze door with Jiao Tianzhong. Before leaving here, Jiang Qin had set up many disintegrating arrays to slowly dissolve the Blood Demon Clan's sealing secret technique. Now, looking at the blood moon in the sky, it was obviously much dimmer. Looking at the speed, it'll take at least 10 days, at most a month, Jiang Qin said. "It's good that you can come out." Jiao Tianzhong heaved a sigh of relief. No one knew how much pressure he was under now, and no one knew how weak the Jiotian Imperial Court was without Jiao Tianzhong. Now, as long as this ancestor came out, then perhaps the Jiotian Imperial Court would have the strength to challenge the world's edge. "Oh, right, there's one more thing," Jiao Tianzhong said. "When Father left, he asked me to bring you to Tiger Head Mountain." "Tiger Head Mountain? Isn't that a burial ground?" Jiang Qin was stunned. Jiang Qin naturally knew about Tiger Head Mountain. It was located in the extreme cold north of the Jiotian Imperial Court. It was dead silent there, and there were no living creatures. Only a bare snow mountain stood there. The peak of the snow mountain was like a tiger's head. Often, fresh blood would turn into streams and flow down from the top of the mountain, dyeing the entire mountain red. Some people said that an evil demon was buried on Tiger Head Mountain. The blood was formed by the evil demon's demonic chi after it died, and it was not to be approached. Some people said that there was not only one evil demon buried on Tiger Head Mountain, but a group of them. In his previous life, Jiang Qin had also gone to Tiger Head Mountain to take a look, but because the evil chi was too strong, he didn't go in. Chapter 932. The nine heavens divine world's territory was vast. There were many restricted zones and forbidden lands. This Tiger Head Mountain was one of them. But compared to the other restricted zones, Tiger Head Mountain appeared very desolate. No one was even willing to step foot there. The baleful energy there could be said to be the strongest in the nine heavens divine world. Even master gods would be corroded by the baleful energy there too, falling into evil. Bringing me to Tiger Head Mountain for what? Jiang Chen asked. Bringing you to find someone? Jiu Tianzhong's expression was strange, and he asked, You really don't remember anything? What do you mean? You're referring to past life's memories? Jiang Chen frowned and said with a sigh, Don't remember. It's a blur. Occasionally, I'll remember some fragments. Sigh. Jiu Tianzhong let out a long sigh. Once upon a time, how powerful were you? But now, done talking, Jiu Tianzhong got up and brought Jiang Chen in front of the transmission array and said, There's indeed an evil fiend buried on Tiger Head Mountain. It's a divine king-level great evil fiend. What has it got to do with me? Jiang Chen said in puzzlement. Before that creature became a great evil fiend, he still had another name. Jiu Tianzhong stared at Jiang Chen and said softly, He's called Tian Song. Tian Song? My previous life? Jiang Chen's heart palpitated. Although Jiang Chen forgot the memories of his previous few lives, he also knew now. There was such a life, he was called Tian Song. But what he did not expect was that Tian Song actually became a great evil fiend in that life. And in this life, he also became an evil fiend. It was just that this life's baleful energy was suppressed by 3 wisps of chaos energy and the myriad change heavenly lamp. 2 lives becoming evil fiend. Is this a coincidence? Or is it fate? Jiang Chen frowned and immediately asked, Want me to go and retrieve Tian Song's physical body? Speaking of which, it's also strange. According to what I know, those physical bodies that you left behind seem to be all there. Not a single one is damaged, Jiu Tianzhong said in puzzlement. When Jiang Chen heard that, he also had a dumbfounded look. Reincarnated for quite a few lifetimes, his physical body was still intact? Was this real or fake? Could it be that after he died back then, someone helped him collect his corpse and preserved it well? Or could it be that his physical body was indestructible? A flourishing era is about to arrive. Royal Father wants you to have an additional foundation. Jiu Tianzhong spoke. Let's go and retrieve your body. Tiger Head Mountain is filled with baleful aura. I'm afraid it will be difficult to enter, Jiang Chen said in a deep voice. Back then, when Jiang Chen was God King Tian Shen, he did not dare to casually step into that place. Even if they had been to Tiger Head Mountain, they would not dare to go too deep. And in this life, Jiang Chen didn't want to go to Tiger Head Mountain. This was because there was still a baleful aura in his body that he had suppressed with great difficulty. Once it collided with the baleful aura in the outside world, it was very likely that the baleful aura in his body would awaken. At that time, he would become a fiend, lost consciousness. However, just as the 9 heavens layers said, this was a flourishing age, but it was also a chaotic age. If he didn't have enough foundation and trump cards, Jiang Chen would have a hard time establishing himself. Jiang Chen was now the acting emperor of the Jiotian imperial court, a disciple of the sky-reaching school, and a red-clothed man who had so many people helping him. But once the flourishing age arrived, when heroes rose together, could these be considered foundations? Perhaps, at that time, even the Jiotian imperial court and the sky-reaching school, these forces would find it difficult to protect themselves. I have the chaos chi and the myriad change heavenly lamp. It shouldn't be a problem, Jiang Chen said softly. In the end, Jiang Chen decided to go to Tiger Head Mountain to retrieve Tian Song's body. Jiu Tianzhong did not go with him. He told Jiang Chen directly that he did not want to be contaminated by the baleful aura. Then after I retrieve the body, I will go directly to Tsang Prefecture. Jiang Chen said, You must do the things I tell you to do to the best of your ability. Honored one. Jiu Tianzhong nodded. Then, Jiang Chen stepped into the transmission array and entered the transmission channel. After a dozen breaths, he arrived at the north of the 9 heavens, Liang Prefecture. Liang Prefecture was the northernmost city of the Nine Heavens divine world. This place was covered in snow all year round. The sky was snow white, and the coldness filled every corner. However, this Liang Prefecture city was bustling with activity. This was because there was a top sect in Liang Prefecture City, the Floating Snow Pavilion. The master of the Floating Snow Pavilion, the Floating Snow Sovereign God, was said to have reached the peak of the Sovereign God realm tens of thousands of years ago. If it were not for the environment, the master of the Floating Snow Pavilion would have become a divine king long ago. The Floating Snow Pavilion had been around for a long time and had a deep foundation. However, they had never participated in worldly conflicts. In the eyes of outsiders, the Floating Snow Pavilion did not have any ambition. Since the establishment of the Floating Snow Pavilion, the people of the Floating Snow Pavilion had never left Liang Prefecture City. They lived their own lives and welcomed outsiders to visit Liangzhou City. As time passed, Liang Prefecture City became a tourist attraction. However, what really made Liang Prefecture City lively was not the Floating Snow Pavilion's attitude of standing aloof from worldly affairs. It was the ice coffin in Liang Prefecture City. Inside the ice coffin was a woman from an unknown era. Her appearance could be said to be extremely beautiful. Some people even said that she was the most beautiful woman in history. Unfortunately, this woman died for unknown reasons and was buried in the ice coffin. She was not buried in a grave. The ice coffin was floating in the sky above Liang Prefecture City. Anyone could see it. Many people came to Liang Prefecture City to see the appearance of this woman, who was known as the most beautiful woman in the world. In my previous life, I really did not see what this woman looked like, Jiang Qin whispered. After arriving at Liang Prefecture City, he was not in a hurry to go to Tiger Head Mountain. He wanted to satisfy his curiosity first. However, just as he walked out of the teleportation formation, his expression suddenly changed. A gloomy and cold aura was rapidly approaching him, just like frost. "You want to ambush me?" Jiang Qin was shocked. The world's edge had just set the rules, and someone was already ignoring them. Were they trying to provoke the world's edge? "Don't make a sound. It's me." However, to Jiang Qin's surprise, when the cold aura reached him, it was actually Mu Xingyun's figure. He did not appear and was only a ball of gray fog. However, Jiang Qin knew that it was Mu Xingyun. "What are you doing here?" Jiang Qin asked. "Something big happened here," Mu Xingyun said in a deep voice. "The yin-yang boundary stone has appeared." "What? There really is a yin-yang boundary stone?" Jiang Qin was shocked, and his expression turned serious. There were rumors in the world that the place they were in was the world of the living. Then, if there was yang, there would be yin. Some people said that there was an invisible barrier somewhere in the world of the living. That was the place that separated the two worlds of the living. There was once a great saint who deduced that when the yin-yang boundary stone appeared, the two worlds of the living and the dead would fight. However, from ancient times until now, no one had ever seen a creature from the underworld, let alone been to the underworld. Over time, no one believed in the underworld anymore, and it became a rumor. But now, how do you know about the yin-yang boundary stone? Jiang Qin asked. "Please, I've been in the ninth heaven divine realm for a while. Of course, I've heard of the legend of the yin-yang boundary stone." Mu Xingyan said snappily, "I'm not here to kill you today. I want to tell you that the underworld might really exist." "So what? What do you want?" Jiang Qin frowned. "Could it be that you want to go to the underworld?" Chapter 933. The Netherworld had always been a legend. There was no evidence to prove the existence of the Netherworld at all. Moreover, as a cultivator, who would believe in ghosts and monsters? In the eyes of cultivators, there were no ghosts in this world at all. The so-called ghosts were just another kind of living being. Since there were no ghosts, there was naturally no Netherworld. The Netherworld might really exist, Mu Xingyan said in a low voice. "Have you heard? The ninth heaven divine world is actually a burial ground." "I've heard of that rumor." Jiang Qin nodded and said, What does this have to do with the netherworld? Perhaps the ninth heaven divine world is really a burial ground, but this so-called burial ground isn't here, but in the netherworld. Mu Xingyin guessed. Now there's an anomaly in Liangzhou City. A passage appeared in the ice coffin. It's suspected to be the entrance to the netherworld. What? That ice coffin? Jiang Chen narrowed his eyes, somewhat surprised. One had to know that the ice coffin had existed for a very long time. It could not even be traced back to its origins. However, this ice coffin had never undergone any changes since ancient times until now. In fact, back then, when a god king attacked the ice coffin, he could not shatter it. It was unbreakable, as if it was trapped by the great Tao. Now, this ice coffin that had not melted since ancient times had actually undergone changes. This was indeed somewhat abnormal. Let's go and take a look, Jiang Chun said softly. He had Mu Xingyin hide in the dark while he walked over openly. After a dozen breaths, when Jiang Chen arrived at the square of Liangzhou City, the place was already filled with people. Looking carefully, there were many people from top sects here. There were even lord-level people standing in the distance, watching the ice coffin. Jiang Chen? Tian Chun. At that moment, a few exclamations sounded. Many people turned around. When they saw Jiang Chen, a hint of killing intent appeared in their eyes. So many enemies. Mu Xingyin muttered. These people are all from the 36-peak lord level, right? Yes, more or less. Jiang Chen nodded. His expression was calm, and there was no trace of fear in his eyes. Now that Tinya had set the rules, Jiang Chen did not believe that these people would dare to make a move against him. Besides, Jiang Chen had nothing to fear as long as it wasn't someone at the level of her eminence. Jiang Chen, you're walking in the world so openly. Aren't you afraid of death? Someone said in a deep voice. Don't tell me you're tired of living. Cut the crap. If you want to do it, then do it. Jiang Chen glanced at the other party and said, the premise is that you can withstand the anger of Tinya. As soon as he said this, the killing intent in many people's eyes disappeared, but their faces were full of resentment. The higher-ups of their forces had already told them about the rules of the world's edge. Therefore, ordinary people really didn't dare to move. The world's edge can protect you for a while, but it can't protect you forever. Someone said coldly, his face as cold as frost. When Jiang Chen heard this, he chuckled and said, even without the protection of the world's edge, you can't do anything to me. As he said that, Jiang Chen pointed at an overgod not far away and asked mockingly, do you dare to make a move against me? If the world's edge doesn't interfere, I can kill you right now. The killing intent in the overgod's eyes soared, but he resisted the urge to attack. You seem to have forgotten something. I'm now the overlord of the Jiutian court. Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows and said, do you think that as the overlord, I don't have anyone to protect me when I'm outside? As soon as he said that, everyone present was moved. Yes, as Jiang Chen said, the overlord of the Jiutian court didn't have anyone secretly protecting him. It was easier said than done to kill Jiang Chen openly. For a moment, everyone was afraid. Those who had shown killing intent towards Jiang Chen before also restrained it. Seeing this, Jiang Chen couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. Only he knew that this time, he came here alone. He didn't have the protection of the Jiutian court's experts at all. Luckily, he managed to intimidate these people with a few words. Otherwise, if they really attacked, Jiang Chen would have to run away. He might not even be able to run away. Everyone move aside. At this moment, Jiang Chen walked over step by step. His expression was calm, and divine light flowed around him. Many people moved aside to make a path, but there were also people who stood in the middle and didn't want to move aside. In response, Jiang Chen sneered. His eyelids drooped, and his voice gradually turned cold. I am the overlord of the Jiutian court. As soon as he said that, the faces of those who stood in front of Jiang Chen immediately fell. Although Jiang Chen's cultivation was low, his status was frighteningly high. The overlord of the Jiutian court was enough to be on equal footing with the leaders of their forces. Now, if they insisted on making things difficult for Jiang Chen, it would probably lead to a war between the two sides. What's so great about that? You're just an acting overlord. Someone looked at him with disdain, but still stepped aside. What? An acting overlord isn't an overlord? If you're so capable, why don't you go be an acting overlord too? Jiang Chen mocked. Sooner or later, you'll die a horrible death. Arrogant, a mere lower true god thinks he can do whatever he wants just because he's from the Jiutian court? He'll die sooner or later. Many people's murderous intent surged, but they suppressed it. At this moment, Jiang Chun ignored these people and came to the center of the square. The moment he arrived, a man in a white robe walked over. He saluted Jiang Chun and said, "I'm the city governor of Liangzhou City. Greetings, overlord of the Jiutian court." "No need to be so polite," Jiang Chun said softly and waved his hand. Just like they said, "I'm just an acting overlord." "Overlord of the Jiutian court? You must be joking." "An acting overlord is still an overlord," the man in white said. Then he pointed at the ice coffin in the air and asked, "Overlord of the Jiutian court, did you come here for this ice coffin?" "I was passing by, so I came to take a look," Jiang Chen said softly. "Overlord, you may not know this, but this ice coffin has never changed since ancient times. However, a few days ago, the woman in the ice coffin suddenly disappeared." The man in white had a strange look on his face, and his eyes were filled with confusion. Then, he led Jiang Chen into the air and stood next to the ice coffin. He pointed at the empty ice coffin and said, "After the woman disappeared, a void crack appeared in the ice coffin and waves of yin qi came out of it." Hiss! At this moment, Jiang Chun gasped. His pupils suddenly shrank, and even his body was continuously retreating. This was because he saw that the woman was there. A peerlessly beautiful woman in a white robe sat on the coffin lid and smiled at Jiang Chun. However, if one took a closer look, they would realize that there were black bloodstains on the woman's face, hair, and clothes. It was dried blood. Moreover, the woman was emitting a strong yin qi. Upon closer inspection, it was not yin qi, demonic qi, murderous qi, or death qi. It was yin qi. Chapter 9:34. It was not the yin qi of yin and yang. It was a special kind of yin qi. Jiang Chun had never felt this kind of yin qi before. It was so cold that it pierced his bones and reached his soul. Jiang Chen's body was very strong, his blood was vigorous, and his yang qi was abundant. However, under this yin qi, he felt that his entire body was about to be frozen. Can't you see her?" Jiang Chen's heart palpitated. He looked around and realized that they could not see this woman at all. Then, am I the only one who can see her? All of a sudden, a bell-like laughter rang in Jiang Chen's mind. His soul shook violently and was almost destroyed by this laughter. Jiang Chen spat out a mouthful of blood. Not only was it mixed with shun qi, but it was also accompanied by a terrifying yin qi. "I was corroded by the yin qi just like that." Jiang Chun hurriedly retreated and said to the white-robed man, "Retreat quickly." The white-robed man was puzzled. He was standing beside the ice coffin and was completely fine. He could not even feel a trace of coldness. Jiang Chun was also puzzled. Could it be that this yin qi was targeting him? Can't you see her?" Jiang Chen's expression was extremely serious. He felt that he was in big trouble today. "What are you talking about? Jiang Chen, are you trying to trick us? We are all gods. This kind of trick is useless against us." Many people mocked him. Some even went to the ice coffin and touched it with their hands. Nothing happened. "I'm in big trouble." Jiang Chen was shocked. He was even more puzzled. Why couldn't these people see that peerless woman? However, Jiang Chun did not dare to think too much at this moment. He turned around and ran out of Liangzhou City. He was really scared. The yin qi on that woman was too special. It was impossible to see this kind of yin qi in the world of the living. Even the yin qi emitted by the sacred body of all yin and the sacred body of Taiyin could not compare to the yin qi on that woman's body. This is too strange. Jiang Chen rushed all the way and arrived at a distance of 30,000 li away from the Liangzhou city. His heart was still palpitating as he wondered if someone had secretly set up some secret spell formation to trap and kill him with this ice coffin in arid continent city. However, Jiangchen was on high alert just now and did not notice that there was an array formation near the ice coffin. What happened to you? At this moment, Mu Xingyin caught up and materialized. Just as he was about to approach Jiangchen, he suddenly shuddered and exclaimed, "This is frost chi on your body." "No, it's Yin energy," Jiangchen muttered. "This Yin energy, what do you think?" "This is no ordinary Yin energy," Mu Xingyin said in a deep voice and frowned. After a few breaths, he said, "Your disciple Bai Fengyu has the great moon saint body, but the Yin chi she emits is not as terrifying as yours." "Could it be the netherworld really exists?" Jiangchen muttered. Suddenly, Jiangchen felt a chill on his back. When he turned around, he almost fainted. He saw that the woman had appeared behind him without him noticing. At this moment, the woman was smiling, but her face was stained with black blood. She was smiling at Jiangchen. That smile was very beautiful, but also very evil. "What did you see?" Mu Xingyun's heart was also numb. He knew that Jiangchen was not pretending. He really saw something that they could not see. "It's the woman in the ice coffin." Jiangchen kept retreating and pulled Mu Xingyun, saying, "Let's go. We're in big trouble." "Don't pull me. I can't see her. Maybe she's just targeting you." Mu Xingyun pulled away Jiangchen's hand and stood in place. After a few breaths, he heaved a sigh of relief and said to Jiangchen in the distance, "Look, I'm fine." "Damn it. It's really strange." Jiangchen shouted strangely before he escaped into the void. Jiangchen had seen all kinds of situations, but on this day, he was really panicking. A woman who had died many years ago should be lying quietly in the ice coffin. But now, this woman seemed to be alive. Not only was she not seen by others, she was also chasing after him. Nine Heavens Lair. After half an incense stick's time, Jiangchen escaped thousands of miles away. However, the woman behind him was following him at a moderate pace. He could not shake her off. At this moment, Jiangchen crushed a talisman and let out a long roar. In the Nine Heavens Lair, Jiangchen's voice sounded in his ears. "Ancestor, he's in trouble," Nine Heavens Lair exclaimed. In an instant, in the back mountain of the Nine Heavens Lair, inside the cave, a skinny figure tore through the void and left. In 3 breaths, the void around Jiangchen collapsed. The skinny figure suddenly appeared and protected Jiangchen behind him. But then, the skinny old man was dumbfounded. He looked around and covered every inch of the place with his divine consciousness. However, he did not find the enemy. In fact, this place was so remote that there was not even an ant. "You, what's wrong?" the skinny old man asked. "You're the old divine king of the Nine Heavens Lair, right?" Jiangchen asked. Then he pointed in front of him and said with a face full of cold sweat, "Can't you see her?" "What?" The skinny old man was puzzled. He did not feel anything strange. However, he could feel a special cold air on Jiangchen's body. "You're poisoned?" the skinny old man asked. "My divine body is full of yang energy. How can I be poisoned?" Jiangchen said in a low voice. The next moment, he suddenly shut up. That was because the woman came in front of him and covered Jiangchen's mouth with her slender hand that was stained with blood. In the eyes of outsiders, Jiangchen kept shaking his head. His mouth was open, but he could not speak. "There's a big problem," the skinny old man said in a low voice. He grabbed Jiangchen's shoulder and tore through the void. He planned to take Jiangchen back first. However, as soon as the scrawny old man grasped Jiangchen's shoulder, an extremely cold air broke out from nowhere. The scrawny old man was forced to retreat by the force of the collision. Then, frost appeared around Jiangchen. After a burst of white fog, Jiangchen disappeared on the spot. "Where is he?" The skinny old man looked serious and his heart was tense. He suspected that there was an extremely powerful creature nearby that was secretly making a move. However, after observing for a long time, he still could not find any trace of the enemy. Could it be them? All of a sudden, the skinny old man recalled the special cold energy in Jiang Chen's body. Two words popped up in his mind: Netherworld. The powerful enemy is still here, and the world of the living is going to be chaotic at any time. Now the Netherworld is about to appear? The skinny old man felt that the situation was very serious. He did not chase after Jiang Chun, but returned to the Nine Heavens lair directly. That day, the Nine Heavens lair directly announced to the world that they would seal their mountains. At the same time, the Chejai sect and the Sky-Reaching sect also sealed their mountains. This made the world puzzled. The Golden Age was about to arrive. Why did the three top forces suddenly seal their mountains? Chapter 935. The Golden Age was about to descend, and Tinya had appeared. At this time, Jotian Dynasty, Transcendental Sect, and Sky-Reaching School, the three top forces suddenly sealed their mountains and isolated themselves from the world. This was really puzzling. However, just half a day later, there was news that the Light Shrine had also sealed their mountains. After another half an incense stick's time, the Dark Shrine also announced that they would seal their mountains. At this moment, the world finally reacted. Something big was about to happen in the Ninth Heaven Divine World. These top forces sealed their mountains not because they did not want to compete for the position of Overlord of the Ninth Heaven Divine World, but because they wanted to protect themselves. Many people were terrified. What was going to happen in the Ninth Heaven Divine World? Even these top sects wanted to protect themselves and did not dare to attack. A bunch of cowards. Song State, Tinya, on a mountain peak surrounded by clouds and mist. A middle-aged man in purple stood on the mountain peak with his hands behind his back. His body was steaming with righteous energy. There was a trace of disdain and anger in his eyes, but more of it was helplessness. Sir, the news is true. The underworld is indeed about to appear. Behind him, the old man with a walking stick lowered his head and said respectfully. There was fear and endless confusion in his eyes. Are you wondering why the underworld would appear? The man in purple said softly. The underworld shouldn't come to the world of the living. The old man with a walking stick frowned. This is an ancient covenant, and also the law of yin and yang conservation. When the creatures of the underworld come to the world of the living, we don't need to do anything. They will be corroded and burned by the yang energy of the world of the living until they die. Hearing this, the man in purple nodded and said, It used to be like this. The creatures of the underworld could not enter the world of the living, and the creatures of the world of the living could not enter the underworld. But everything has changed now. The man in purple sighed. He stood on the mountain peak and looked into the distance. There seemed to be a universe spinning in his eyes. After a dozen breaths of silence, he stretched out a finger and pointed at the sky. What is a golden age? Do you know? The recovery of the great Tao, the recovery of heaven and earth. Everything has returned to its peak. The old man with a walking stick said, Everything has reached its peak. It is a golden age. Then do you know why everything has reached its peak? The man in purple asked again. Even though the old man with the walking stick had a profound cultivation base and had almost seen through the great Tao, he was momentarily at a loss for words. Perhaps it was caused by the reincarnation of the heavenly Tao. The yin and yang energies are like the laws of balance in this world. If the yin and yang energies lose their balance, then no power will be able to restrain or suppress them. When all the power is unleashed, it will be the so-called Golden Age. The purple-robed man explained. During the Golden Age, it was thought that the yin and yang energies had lost their balance. Therefore, the yin and yang realms were filled with the yin and yang energies, and changes occurred. When the Golden Age truly arrives, the living beings of the netherworld will no longer fear the yang energy of the mortal realm. Likewise, the living beings of the mortal realm will no longer fear the yin energy of the netherworld. At this point, the purple-clothed man let out another long sigh, seemingly filled with endless helplessness. He He stood on the spot. After a long time, he sighed and said, Yin and Yang are like water and fire. They cannot coexist. This is a principle. It's just a pity that the mortal realm doesn't just have to deal with the netherworld right now. We also have to deal with the powerhouses of the greater thousand realms. I don't know if the world of the 9 clouds of Yang can survive this tribulation. Sir, is the world's edge really going to make a move? Won't a miracle happen this time? The old man with a walking stick asked. The purple-robed man smiled bitterly. He stretched out a finger and said, There was once Tian Yuan, Tian Xian, Tian Song, and Tian Qing. In every era, there would be a supreme powerhouse that would appear out of nowhere. Therefore, there will be miracles. This time, look at the world. What kind of living being can be called a powerhouse? Is it those god emperors who formed their own forbidden zones? Or the old monsters who have been sleeping for countless years? As he spoke, the purple-robed man paused for a moment and sighed again. None of them. Since no one in the world can stand up, then in this world, only I, the world's edge, can do it. After saying that, the purple-robed man waved his hand and said, The academy must be established, and the rules must be set. First the internal peace, then the external peace. But many forces have sealed their mountains. I'm afraid the things needed to build the academy are not complete. The old man with a walking stick smiled bitterly and said, Cultivation methods, divine skills, Taoist skills. Do I have to bear all of them alone? I'm afraid it's very difficult. Take this and visit the forbidden zones. Ask them if they're willing to help. The purple-robed man took out a white jade token. On it were the words, Heavenly Lord. The old man with a walking stick was moved. He took the token with trembling hands and said seriously, Sir, do you really want to use this token? It's time to use it. The purple-robed man said, If those forbidden zones are not willing to help, then, when this era ends, the forbidden zones will not exist. Tell them that the 9th heaven divine world does not raise useless people. Yes. In the end, the old man with a walking stick left. The purple-robed man still stood on the mountain peak and looked into the distance. After half a day, he touched his hair and then touched his hair crown with both hands and said softly, The hair can be messed up, but the crown cannot be messed up. The crown is straight, the heart is straight. Or die, no complaints. At the same time, in a small world in the 9th heaven divine world, an old man and a young man stood beside a small stream. The old man was fishing, and the young man was holding a basket, waiting for the old man to fish. Master, you have been fishing for tens of thousands of years. When can you catch it? The young man asked. He was also very puzzled. He knew that there were no fish in this small stream at all. As for him, he had accompanied his master and fished in this small stream for tens of thousands of years. He hadn't even moved a single inch. He did not understand what his master was doing and what he was thinking. Do you think there are no fish in this small stream? The old man asked. Master, the stream water is shallow and clear. Where did the fish come from? There aren't even shrimps. The young man muttered. What are you fishing for? Fishing for people, the old man said softly. Suddenly, his eyes flashed. He suddenly raised the fishing rod in his hand and said with a smile, Look, didn't I catch it? Really? The young man blinked and stared at the empty hook. He thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. However, before he could ask, the old man handed the fishing rod in his hand to the young man and said, Take this fishing rod and go fishing in a black river at the border of Liangzhou. If anyone asks, just say that you are here to fish for people. Also, you have to tell that person that today, when fishing for people, you must fish them away. Hearing this, the young man was dumbfounded. However, he still took the fishing rod, bowed, and left. About half a day later, the young man arrived at a black river at the border of Liangzhou City. Chapter 936. This young man looked very ordinary. He was dressed like a page boy and had a silly appearance. He looked very honest. He followed the old man's instructions and came here. Then, he took out his fishing rod and cast a line. The hook fell into the black water river. Ding dong. The moment the hook fell into the black water river, there seemed to be the sound of a bell ringing. The surface of the water sparkled and ripples spread out. There was also a strand of dark green light rising from the depths of the river. A gust of wind suddenly blew, bringing with it a trace of coldness. The water in the lake also suddenly boiled. Shortly after, a white figure floated out from the lake. Energy suddenly surged, and this area was covered in energy. Even the sun turned dark. It was as if the sky was dark. The young man's expression was calm. He looked at the figure and said softly, "I'm here on my master's orders to fish for someone." "Fish for someone?" The figure frowned and slowly walked up to the young man. He asked, "There is no one here, only ghosts." "My master told me to come, so I came." "My master also said that I must fish for someone today." There was not a trace of fear in the young man's eyes. His simple and honest demeanor gave people a feeling that he was unperturbed and would never change. If someone else was here, they would be shocked to find that the young man seemed to be talking to himself. This was because there was no one in front of him. If Jiangchen was here, he would be shocked. This was because the person standing in front of the young man was the woman in the ice coffin. However, there was not a trace of blood on this woman's body. She was very clean and beautiful. She was like a fairy in the world of darkness, untainted by the mortal world. However, there was a trace of darkness and energy between her eyebrows that made her seem out of place in this world. You think a wooden rod, a thin line, and a fishing hook can fish for an ancient pattern? The woman raised her eyebrows and coldly said, "Go back and tell your master that there is no one here." "If my master says there is, then there is," the young man said. "Are all his disciples like this?" The woman raised her eyebrows. Her face was cold as she threw out a palm as if she was going to crush the fishing rod. Wang. However, when her slender hand came into contact with the fishing rod, a rumbling sound suddenly rang out. Immediately after, the fishing rod shone with a shocking light. The golden radiance was like a divine light that illuminated everything. It was more like a raging flame, and an aura of extreme yang emerged. The fishing line turned into a chain, and like a golden dragon, it wrapped around the woman's hand in an instant. Hiss! The woman seemed to be in pain and sucked in a breath of cold air. She waved her hand and shook off the golden light and chains. Then, she retreated to a spot not far away. Her eyes were cold as she stared at the fishing rod in the young man's hand and fell silent. After a dozen breaths, she slowly opened her mouth and coldly said with a hint of sternness in her eyes, "Fisherman, you've caught nothing." "You're right. My master has been fishing for a long time without catching a fish." The young man nodded. "But today we're here to fish. Go back and tell your master that I've caught him. I'll send him over personally." The woman said in a low voice, "Don't come here again. Otherwise, even if you're the fisherman's disciple, you won't be able to leave this place alive. Master said that we must catch someone today." The young man shook his head and said, "I haven't seen him yet, and he hasn't taken the bait. How can I leave?" Master's words are heavenly orders. Hearing that, the woman's expression turned even uglier. Her aura skyrocketed. She pressed her hand in the air, and ripples spread out. There were even sounds of the air being torn apart. At this moment, everyone in Liangzhou City saw the ice coffin that had been standing in the sky above the square for countless years break open the void on its own and disappear into it. Where did it go? Was it taken away by someone? Or did it have a mind of its own and escape? In Liangzhou City, everyone exclaimed. Some people even followed the path that the ice coffin took and chased after it. There were a few titled deities, lesser lords, and even peak lords. They chased all the way until they arrived at Blackwater River. When they arrived, they saw a young man holding a fishing rod and standing quietly by the Blackwater River. He was covered in frost, and there was even a black substance floating around him. It was as if the dark side suppressed the light. "That's a domain. It's so cold. That's an unusual aura." Someone stared at the young man in shock, wanted to go over and ask him what was going on. However, at this moment, a dull golden light erupted from the young man. There was also an explosion of the most masculine energy. It was as if several suns had been added to him. The light was dazzling and even shot into the sky, blasting away the dark clouds in the sky. Then, to everyone's surprise and bewilderment, the young man shouted, "I'm here to fish today. Don't force me to attack." Attack? Who is he talking to? There's no one here. Could he be talking to us? Just as everyone was puzzled, a higher-ranked chief god's eyes focused. In his days, he seemed to have seen a woman in white on black water river. However, he couldn't be sure. It was like an illusion that disappeared in an instant. The higher-ranked chief god asked, "Did you guys see a woman just now? She looks like the person in the ice coffin. Are you seeing things? Apart from us and that young man, what other living beings are there here?" Everyone said exasperatedly, "Indeed, there's a woman." At this moment, a peaked chief god pointed at Blackwater River with a grave expression and said, "Something's wrong. It's really the woman in the ice coffin. You can see her," someone exclaimed. As soon as he said that, everyone's expressions suddenly froze. That was because the woman's figure had completely manifested under the golden light. At this moment, everyone could see the woman, as well as her peerless features and the terrifying aura surrounding her. Her face is covered in blood. How terrifying! What exactly is going on? Everyone was shocked, but they saw the young man standing there calmly. His eyes were fixed on the woman as he said softly, "I'm no match for you, but you must know that Master asked me to come here to fish. Even if I die today, I'm going to fish someone back. Go back and tell your master that I'm only borrowing this person for a few days. When the time is up, I'll send him back. I won't hurt him at all," the woman said solemnly and didn't continue to attack. This was because she knew better than anyone else just how terrifying the identity and strength of this young man's master. That was that fisherman, with a wooden rod, a thin line, and a fishing hook. He had fished from prehistoric times to the present, from ancient times to the sky. Even in the world she came from, there were legends about dangling fishers. Some people even saw with their own eyes that the dangling fisher's hooks tore through the realm barrier, crossed the two realms of yin and yang, and entered the world she came from. Chapter 937. This woman's background was very special and mysterious. Only a handful of people knew about her. She had been dead in Liangzhou City for countless years without anyone daring to touch her. It was evident that she was extraordinary. However, nothing in this world was absolute. No one dared to touch her in the past. That was in the past. But now, I've said it many times. Master asked me to fish for someone today, so I must fish him back, the young man said seriously. Beneath his simple and honest appearance was a determined heart. Perhaps he was just following his master's wishes, or perhaps he had his own ideas. But no matter what, since he was here today, he must fish this person back. Hearing this, the woman in white's expression turned ugly, and she fell silent. She stared at the young man, her eyes full of disgust. "I hate sunlight." After a dozen breaths, the woman in white spoke. With a wave of her hand, the black river water evaporated, and a young man floated out from the bottom of the river. "Isn't that Tianqin?" "Jiangchun." The people in the distance narrowed their eyes, wondering why Jiangchun was here. What was his relationship with the woman in white? "The person the fisherman wants is him," the woman in white said. "Is it all right now?" "It should be him." The young man nodded, but he did not make a move. He looked at Jiangchun and found that the other party seemed to be in a deep sleep. The light in his body was silent, as if it had faded away, or as if it had been sealed. His soul had disappeared, and even his soul was dark, as if he had fallen into depravity. "I've already handed him over to you. Why aren't you leaving?" the woman in white said in a low voice. "Master asked me to fish for someone," the young man muttered. "He didn't say what state the person should be in. Let's just leave it at that." With that, the young man waved his hand and captured Jiangchun. Then he carried him on his shoulder and escaped into the void, disappearing on the spot in an instant. A bunch of ants from the Yang realm. Go down if you've seen enough. After the young man disappeared, the woman in white seemed to be venting her anger. With a gentle wave of her slender hand, the group of people watching from afar, including the peak chief god, were instantly turned into ice sculptures. The cold wind blew by. After 3 breaths of time, these ice sculptures shattered and turned into crystal-clear powder, killing a pinnacle stage cultivator with a single move. If others saw this, they would definitely be shocked. What kind of power was that? With a light wave of his hand, even a pinnacle-level chief god would die. In the end, the white-clothed woman grunted coldly and vanished on the spot. Along with the ice coffin, they disappeared without a trace. A few hours later, in that mysterious small world, the young man returned and placed Jiang Chun in front of the old man. He handed over the fishing rod with both hands and said, "Master, is this the person you wanted me to fish?" "It's him, but it's also not him." The old man glanced at Jiang Chun and sighed deeply. "In the end, it's all in the past. Can he come back?" "Master, who is he?" the young man asked curiously. He knew what kind of personality his master had. Even if the outside world was destroyed, his master would not be moved at all. But now his master had actually made a move for a young man. This was truly a rare occurrence. "An old friend," the old man said. "Perhaps he has forgotten me, but I still remember him." "Old friend?" The young man was surprised and exclaimed softly, "The ancient times? The ancient times? Ha!" The old man scoffed and said, "What's the ancient times? I've known him even before that." "Before the ancient times? Could it be the primordial era?" The young man was shocked. That era was far too ancient. Many people did not know how many eras there were in this world. However, some special sects had existed since the birth of this world. People like them knew how many eras this world had gone through. From the earliest chaos era to the primordial era, through the primordial era, the primordial era, the primordial era, the antiquity era, and the most recent yellow extinction, green extinction, gray extinction, until the current era. Before the yellow extinction era, it was collectively known as the prehistoric era. Before the primordial era, it was known as the Great Era. Now, there were indeed many old monsters who had lived for countless years in the world, but there were very few who could live from the primordial era to the present. In fact, in the entire world, there were only a handful. The young man did not expect that his master was actually living in the primordial era. In fact, it was very likely that he had far surpassed the primordial era. The Netherworld's methods are good. They actually want to sacrifice him. The fisherman frowned and stared at the black fog on Jiang Chen's body. With a wave of his hand, a golden light descended. A few breaths later, Jiang Chen's body recovered. His soul and divine soul sent out fluctuations, and the black substance on his body was also cleared. Soon, Jiang Chen woke up slowly, and he instinctively retreated at a high speed. That was because he had yet to recover from his shock. In his memory, his mouth was covered by that woman, and he was then dragged into the darkness. No matter how he struggled, he could not escape from that woman's palm. "This place is very safe," the fisherman smiled. Only then did Jiang Chen come back to his senses. He looked at the old and young man and asked, "Where is this place?" "Shangri-La," the fisherman teased. "How is it? Are you happy now?" Hearing this, Jiang Chen looked around. When he saw the green mountains and beautiful water, he nodded in realization and subconsciously said, "So familiar." After saying this, Jiang Chen couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. He was also quite puzzled. Why did he feel that it was very familiar? Could it be that he had been here before? "Where's that woman?" After coming back to his senses, Jiang Chen looked around again. He didn't see the figure of the woman in white and couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. "You're safe for the time being," the fisherman said. "I really didn't expect that after so many years, the Netherworld would still be thinking about your Dao fruit." "Netherworld? The Netherworld really exists?" That woman came from the netherworld. Jiang Chen exclaimed. Of course. The fisherman nodded. There is yang and there is yin. It's just that yin and yang have always been difficult to mix. They are both parallel and opposite planes. Now, the balance between yin and yang is about to be broken. The passage between the netherworld and the world of the living is about to be opened, the fisherman said. Then what will happen? Jiang Chen said in a serious voice. Will the netherworld and the netherworld go to war? Probably. The fisherman wasn't sure. He only knew that yin and yang were opposed to each other. It was normal for them to go to war. However, he didn't know what the people in the netherworld were thinking. Didn't they know that the southern wall was about to collapse? At this time, if they provoked a war between the netherworld and the netherworld, how could they resist the powerhouses of the upper-class world? The memories of your past lives are gone, right? The fisherman's pupils suddenly narrowed as he stared at Jiang Chen and said, Don't you remember anything at all? Chapter 938. Jiang Chen was very helpless. He smiled bitterly and pointed at his head. I only remember the memories of Tian Chen and this life. As expected, you really can't come back. The fisherman sighed, and the disappointment in his eyes was very strong. He slowly got up and walked towards the upper end of the stream. He said softly, Let me show you something. Maybe it will make you remember something. What is it? Jiang Chen frowned and asked, Senior, you are, senior? The fisherman seemed to be surprised and said subconsciously, In front of you, no one dares to call themselves senior. After saying this, the fisherman seemed to have come to his senses. He smiled bitterly and said, Forget it, it's not you after all. The world calls me the fisherman. You can call me the fisherman. The old man said, But in this world, not many people remember me. Fisherman? Jiang Chen muttered. Looking at the back of the fisherman walking in front of him, he felt that he had seen this person somewhere before. However, in Jiang Chen's mind, there seemed to be a fog shrouding it, as if a door was sealed. That was the memory of his previous lives, which had never been opened. It was as if a restriction had been set up, layer by layer, and Jiang Chen was unable to open it at all. Do you know why the great wide world came to us? Walking all the way up the stream until they arrived in front of a stone forest, the fisherman spoke. I don't know. Jiang Chen shook his head. They are here to take someone back, the fisherman said. But then he shook his head, and his face darkened slightly. Maybe they want to kill him and take everything from him. Him? Who is it? Jiang Chen asked. He is the beginning of this world and the end of it. Reincarnation is just the path he has walked, and time and space are just the coffin in which he sleeps. The fisherman's expression was solemn. In this world, if there is anyone who is transcended, then it is only him. After saying that, the fisherman pointed to a stone forest in front of him and asked, Do you want to see him? He's here? Jiang Chen exclaimed. The beginning of the world is also the end of the world. Using time and space as a coffin to sleep, this kind of creature was probably already invincible in this world, right? Since he was invincible, why did the people of the great thousand world want to kill him? Could they kill him? And that person was currently in this stone forest. Why didn't he come out? Jiang Chen nodded despite his doubts and said, Let's take a look. Come in, the angler said softly as he led Jiang Chen deeper into the stone forest along the path. Along the way, Jiang Chen was shocked to discover that the stone forest here was actually condensed from stars. A single stone pillar was made from at least 10,000 stars. In addition, there were some stone pillars that had ancient scriptures on them. They looked like cultivation methods, but also like Tao skills. Jiang Chen glanced at them and felt that these runes were very special. They contained the supreme aura of the great Tao. These stone pillars. Jiang Chen was puzzled and asked, Where did they come from? Of course, they were condensed by that person out of boredom. The angler said, A true invincible person is very lonely. Is he really invincible? Jiang Chen asked. He had a feeling that things were not so simple. Hearing this, the angler did not return and continued to move forward. When the two of them reached the depths of the stone forest, Jiang Chen's pupils suddenly constricted. It was because there was a man not far in front of him. He had the appearance of a young man with regular facial features and was very handsome. He sat cross-legged on a stone pillar. There was no aura on his body, and his body was empty like a black hole. Below him, the great Tao was wailing, and there was a halo that seemed to represent the 6 paths under his feet. What was this? The great Tao could not get close to him and was being suppressed by him. He surpassed the 6 paths and even suppressed it? Was this really something that a cultivator could do? He is the invincible person you mentioned? Jiang Chen asked. Yes. The angler's expression was soft. Then he waved his hand gently, and the man's figure suddenly disappeared. It was like a cloud, moving with the wind and dispersing with the wind. It's not real? Jiang Chen stared, only to see the figure condense again. He died a long time ago, the angler said, because he was invincible. He was lonely. You can't say that he died, but he was looking for a path that could interest him. Then will he come back? Jiang Chen asked. I'm not sure. Maybe he will come back, or maybe he found a path and went to another world. The angler sighed. It's a pity. If he's not here, this world will probably come to an end. As soon as he finished speaking, the fisherman suddenly stared at Jiang Chen, staring straight at him. Jiang Chen felt goosebumps all over his body. He sized himself up and asked, What's so special about me? You really don't have any impression of him? The angler asked. No. Jiang Chen shook his head with a blank expression. Impression? What impression? Was it referring to his impression of this invincible person? Absolutely not. I have some impression of you and feel that you are quite familiar. But as for this invincible person, I really don't have any impression of him at all, Jiang Chen said. As soon as he said this, a trace of sorrow suddenly flashed in the angler's eyes, and there was endless decline. He looked at Jiang Chen a few more times and then sighed. Sure enough, he abandoned everything, even himself. He won't come back. Who is this he that you were talking about? Is it this invincible person in front of you, or someone else? Jiang Chen couldn't help but ask. It was because Jiang Chen often heard that but he didn't know who that he was. But Jiang Chen knew that the so-called he must have something to do with him. Otherwise, why would these people keep mentioning that he in front of him? 9 lives of reincarnation, 10 lives of return. The angler didn't answer Jiang Chen. Instead, he sighed and cursed in a low voice, as if he was in an extremely bad mood. It's all AF * king lie. Liar. Then, the angler suddenly turned around and handed a jade pendant to Jiang Chen. No more waiting. The sky has been destroyed, and he hasn't returned yet. What are you waiting for? From now on, you have to walk your own path. What do you mean? This jade pendant? Jiang Chen was dumbfounded, not knowing why the angler was angry. However, the angler had already disappeared, leaving only Jiang Chen standing there in a daze. He glanced at the jade pendant in his hand. On the front was the word Wan, and on the back was the word Hua. Apart from that, this jade pendant was actually carved from the fragments of the southern wall. Why are you giving me this? Jiang Chen was puzzled and wanted to ask. However, before he could walk out of the stone forest, a gentle force wrapped around him and sent him out of this small world. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.